I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Morris Township Board of Adjustment. The legal notice required in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act has been satisfied, and a statement certifying same will be executed. Please join me in pledging
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Mr. Goldberg,
Here.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Schuster,
Here.
Mr. Benoit.
Here.
Benoit, Mr. Schuster, Mr. Woodford,
Here.
Mr. Phillips.
Here.
Mr. Fishinger,
Here.
Mr. Hanson,
Here.
Mr. Roller,
Here.
Mr. Woodford.
Still there.
And I saw Ms. Santiago here.
Okay. First matter is CDA-14-23 SLA Play Acquisitions LLC. Mr. Capola.
Good evening, Mr.
Give a short summary of what we did,
Sure.
where you're going tonight, and what witnesses we're going to call.
I'll go past some of these pleasantries. We'll get right to it. You last heard from us on November 27th, 2023. We did get carried to the December meeting for purposes of scheduling only. This is our second hearing. During the first hearing, you only heard from one witness. That was Mr. Rusty Schomer. He's our civil engineer. We did receive questions from the board, of course, and the professionals, and also questions from the public. And in response to those questions, we made a supplemental submission on January 19th, 2024. That submission included a new site plan exhibit, an aerial map depicting nearby riparian zones, a detailed tree removal and replacement plan. We submitted an environmental impact statement and a traffic impact and parking assessment. We also submitted to the board a letter that we received from the fire chief, Michael Nunn, approving the revised site plan from a fire perspective. We'd just like to acknowledge that we did receive, subsequent to our first meeting, a traffic engineering review letter prepared by Brightview Engineering, Mr. Fishinger, who's here. And that letter was dated January 23, 2024. This evening, we have four witnesses. We have the architect, John James. We're going to recall Mr. Schomer briefly to just go over some of the items that we submitted in response to the board's comments and the supplemental submission. We have Carol Huber, our landscape architect, and we also have Mr. Corey Chase, who is our traffic engineer. With that, Mr. Chairman, we're ready to call our first witness, Mr. John James.
John, would you stand, please? Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your full name and spell your last name, please?
John W. James III, James, and I'm a principal of John James Architecture, LLC.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. James, can you just give the board the benefit of your education and training, please?
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay through this mic? Okay. I'm a principal in a 9-person firm specializing in custom residential and historic preservation work. I have a bachelor's degree in architecture from University of Virginia and a master's from Columbia University in New York. I'm registered in New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. All my licenses are active and up to date. I've been a registered architect approximately 45 years. I've been a partner and a principal in my firm for over 30 years. Most of our work is single family residential, but we do clubs, churches, civic buildings. We've completed approximately 700 projects in the last 30 years.
Okay, I'd like to qualify this witness as an expert in architecture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before you get
yes.
started, I have two things.
Yes,
One,
sir.
You mentioned in your opening that we had a letter from the fire department.
Yes.
I don't have that.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Does that one say office?
Oh, yeah, it does. Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. On the second page?
I didn't see one. Yeah.
Oh.
No. Do you happen to have an extra copy?
We have one extra
Mark it
copy.
and
Yeah, sure.
put it in that way?
Yes.
I'm sure you're gonna reference it later, but since you made mention of it, why don't we
Yeah,
just?
well, that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can, you know what, son? We can't, we gotta do it.
Yeah, actually, Sonia sent it to us because it was the fire department's letter.
We're not
Yeah,
disputing that it
okay.
exists. We just don't have it.
So for the, just for the record, Mr. Chair, it's a one sentence. Can I read it into the record?
Sure.
Sure. It's, this is, yeah, this is dated 1/19/24 to Board of Adjustment from Chief Michael Nunn, Ray Fire Department, Plan Review Application, BA 1423, SLOC. It states, quote, "I have reviewed the revised site plans dated 12/18/23 received from the applicant regarding the proposed carriage homes at Springbrook, SLOC. I find the revisions satisfactory to meet the items outlined regarding fire department access and suppression abilities noted in my previous memo." And I would like to put this in the record.
Let's mark that A3. Thank you, sir. Got it. Thanks. Okay, sorry to interrupt you.
No, sure. No, no,
Just
that's
wanted to make sure we were clear on
it's
that. Oh,
important.
One other thing, I
Yep.
did say two things. The other thing is, and as you can count, we only have 6 members eligible this evening. I doubt very much that we will get to a vote this evening, but in any event, I want to point that out.
No, I appreciate it.
And we'll have a member or members read the transcript or listen to the tape and sign off on that. before
Thank
the
you.
next hearing.
Yeah, we don't even have our planner on the agenda for this evening because I am not that ambitious. All right. So, Mr. James, did you prepare the plans for this project?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
It was
So,
under my supervision.
thank you, sir. So we're going to have this presentation marked as A4. And that's the presentation on the screens. Is that correct, Mr. James?
That's correct.
Okay. If you would like, please, if you could, sir, please take the board and the public through your presentation.
Okay.
Sorry, but one other thing before you do that.
Yeah.
We have a copy of that already? Does Sonia have a copy of A4?
You know,
Yes, she does.
Yeah,
She has
okay.
a digital copy of the whole thing.
Yes.
I have a paper copy if you want to mark it into the record.
We could, why don't we do that as well? So we'll have a paper copy of it.
Sure.
This includes a paper copy of the complete slide presentation plus
Perfect.
scaled copies of plans.
Okay.
Thank you. No, it's already set as this.
Already in the record.
Right, these are all.
They were already presented last November. Yes.
Okay.
You don't happen to have a clip, do you?
Can't have everything.
Richie, is this what you'll?
I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, housekeeping's done for now. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. James,
Okay.
go ahead.
Thank you. Tonight, I want to show you a photo presentation that'll give you an overview of the site. It'll give inspiration images for the carriage houses that we're proposing. And then I'm going to show you specific images from our work that are the basis for the amenities we're proposing and designing for these carriage houses. And after that, I'm going to go through the 2 floor plan layouts and the elevations of the carriage houses that we prepared. And this is similar to a presentation that I originally did for Springbrook Country Club and the developers. First is the site. You can see the view of the site from the Springbrook Country Club. It's adjacent to the property, but it's also separated from the property. This is looking from the clubhouse across the road to the triangular site. You can see this is from the site and the edge of the golf course looking back up to the clubhouse. This is looking along Springbrook Road, and here you're at the 13th tee box. The long row of evergreen trees forms one edge of the new site, and the deciduous trees along Springbrook Road form the edge at the road for the site. As you move closer, you can see how these 2 sets of trees border the triangular site, and it's much more open on the inside with much smaller trees uphill. And from the top where we're thinking we're entering, you can see how open it is and how that provides the borders back to the country club. So the conceptual plan that was originally started for this project was taking this triangular site, was ringing the houses around the edge, and was trying to create a common space in the middle that could have a gazebo or some type of object. And you can see here the long view back from the site up to the golf course and up to the clubhouse itself. And then we were concerned about what's really the correct image for this property. And most of the housing in this area was built turn of the century up to maybe the 40s, principally in the 20s and 30s. And so we felt that our image of carriage houses would be a really great idea for this particular property, and would be very in keeping with this neighborhood and a Morristown neighborhood, and would be built based on kind of turn of the century images of shingle style houses and carriage houses. And so these are some of the images that we presented and we look at as models for the work we're working on. This one is painted and stained. Here's another one that was a model house of the year in Better Homes and Gardens, shingle style house, wood roofs. Here's a third one with dormers up on the 2nd floor, a nice porch down below. Again, another shingle style house with gables, balconies, some eyebrow windows. So this is what we were thinking of in terms of our high-minded ideas for these houses. And then we wanted to have a community focal point in the middle that could be like a gazebo or an arbor. And that would be in the center of the space, and the houses would focus into this, and the backyards of the houses would focus to the outside of the property and back towards those large trees. This is kind of about where the entry would be to the new development, looking back up to the country club. And I'm going in the wrong direction here. I keep going down. So there are different types of floor plans that we were thinking about for this project. And we're trying to come up with ideas of carriage houses, trying to create a more open floor plan for the interior of the house. This is a carriage house we did several years ago that's been opened up to the property, became a living and an entertaining space instead of for the actual carriages. Here's another one where you have 1.5 story family rooms with beams. Other images of shingle style with low arbors, Palladian windows, dental moldings up at the top. And then interior spaces that give you an open concept here between a kitchen, a dining area, and looking into the family room. So the interiors would be built more on this type of a feeling. Here's a family room in particular. Here's another one with open kitchen, breakfast area, adjacent family room with windows out to the yard. Other family rooms with Palladian windows at the back. You can see how that opens out to a terrace area. Here's a more modern interpretation of the kitchen at the far, dining in the middle, and then family room in the foreground here. Here's another one as well with the open kitchen, large breakfast area, and adjacent family room beyond. These are some of the concepts that we're going to be using in various aspects for the houses that we're doing here. They're really going to be seen as carriage houses, and we're thinking of the ideal client as downsizing from another house to come to this property, and of this as being more of a retirement stay-in-place type of community. Inside, we're going to have dramatic staircases because we're also keeping a smaller footprint. And these houses are going to be built with a basement, a first floor, and a second floor. But there will be some two-story spaces and nice staircases coming up to the various levels of the property, so that they still have a sense of place and some of the gracious features of previous houses that these owners would have had. Primary bedroom suites will include some higher ceilings. They may include some trusses. Here's one with a Palladian window. This one has beam ceilings, a very tailored look. This one has a bay window. Another one with a Palladian window. Primary bathroom details would include tubs as well as showers and double vanities. You'll see glass showers and tubs under windows as well. Another concept with a tub primary between the two sink areas there. Here's another one that has higher windows above it. Here's a beautiful one with a skyline view. We don't have the same skyline views, but we have a nice pastoral site, and there'll be gracious amenities within these houses. We're also going to have other nice areas, including nice breakfast rooms with large glass and high glass and transoms. Some rooms could be a little bit more of a sunroom concept. Other people may want a darker paneled library within their house. So the floor plan's made so it could be flexible to accommodate these different types of rooms within the layouts. There will be built-in bars and butler's pantry areas. They'll come with mudrooms as well, integral to the floor plan. And in some cases, they may want to use basements that are built for entertaining, where we'll come down to another central space in the middle of the basement. And then this could include several of the amenities of previous houses. In this case, it might include a wine cellar, could include a billiard table, gas fireplace, one with a ping pong and a mural. Others are a little bit more open with light. So we're going to have some where there may be some areas for windows in the basement as opposed to fully underground. Nice fireplace seating area, perhaps a home theater. Wine cellars are very popular. And you can see images of all of these things from our work that we're going to bring to bear on all of these floor plans. Sometimes the basement is used primarily for exercise. We also have a space that's over the garages that could be developed for this as well. As you age, exercise becomes a much greater part of your life. And so you can see some of the amenities that could be included for that. We will have elegant entries to these houses, beautiful doors. There'll be some nice porch areas, railings, maybe some copper or metal roofs. Here's one where the porch extends across. This was one of the particular images we liked for the porch fronts on the carriage houses themselves. There'll be some nice gable and bracket details included with it. And you can see this is kind of the shingle style carriage inspiration from some of our previous work here. You can see a carriage style house in the foreground that's connected to the main house in the background. Some other shingle styles with the bay windows, large gable up front, windows hanging from the cornices. A few more images of these, and trim boards around the middle. Here's an all-white interpretation. Here's another one with more gray shingles and a brick base. And it's really trying to create the right scale for this new neighborhood. And we feel that this kind of 1.5 to 2-story image with a roof is going to help keep the scale of the houses down and create the kind of neighborhood effect that we want to have here. So this shows you the carriage houses that were the inspiration for our work and the type of details for what we're doing. So let me go through and show you the floor plan layouts that we're proposing. And there are two different ones. This is the first one is the Jockey Hollow, we're calling it. And you can see it has an entry porch and a 2-car garage up front, a nice entry foyer. We have an open kitchen, breakfast, and family areas central to the house. And it also has the primary bedroom, closet, and primary bathroom on this first floor level with a mudroom option and laundry between the garage and the main house. Up on the second floor, excuse me, this is the second floor here. We have, we're showing 2 bedrooms and a study, could be a bedroom. But we're proposing in most of these houses 3 to 4 bedrooms max. It's an optional part of the plan. The study could be developed as a library. We also have a utility and storage room, and we have space over the garage for an optional recreational room as well. And then in the basement, we have an open basement with mechanical, laundry area, and the potential for an office or a bedroom down there as well. The exterior elevations for this particular model, let me show you here. This is showing the 2-car garage facing the front, and then behind that is the entry and the porch to the house. This would be the front facade. You can see the materials are painted white trim. We have a mahogany door. We have a stone base. We have toned shingles and a wood-looking asphalt shingle roof. We will be doing adaptations to all of these houses individually for the owners. And so there could be upgrades with copper detailing and wood roofs, et cetera, depending on the individual client's needs, wants, and budget. This is the side of the house that shows the side of the garage area where you have the bedroom and the bathroom and the additional bedrooms upstairs. This will be the back of the house with the 2-story family room in the central area there. The bedroom's on the far right, and the pair of doors opens out to the yard from the breakfast dining area. And then this would be the other side of the house from the far side as well, showing the garage on the left, the main house on the right, and the attic up above. The attic would really be for mechanical use only at this point. It's not an occupiable floor area. And then the second set of plans we developed here is we're calling it the Lewis Morris. And this particular plan, let me blow it up here so you can see it better. As opposed to a front entry garage, this has a side entry garage, and then it has similar aspects to the previous floor plan in terms of the open kitchen, dining, family area, primary bedroom on the first floor. You would have additional bedrooms on the second floor. There's still an option for recreational space over the garage. And it would also be built with a full basement as well that could be finished or unfinished. The elevations for this one, you can see it has windows facing the street as opposed to the garage, still has the same arbor beside, has a nice entry porch. And then on the side elevation, You see the entry to the garage from the side. The shingles, the gables, some of the dentals, and the diamond detailing at the top of the gable as well. The back of the house still principally has the large central atrium and has the entry to the back from the breakfast room. It could be from the back or the side. There's several options for the plans here. This is a rendering that was developed to kind of show the different house plan types. You can see a front-facing garage on the left, a couple of side-facing garage, the mature landscaping of the large evergreens that are going to be around the property. And then we also developed a material and sample board showing the asphalt shingle roof, the creamy white trim, the stone veneer base, and the shingle siding. In our plans for the house, we're really planning that most of the options will include 3 and up to 4 bedrooms. We're targeting a client that's looking to downsize, but would like to age in place. We'll be working with each purchaser to customize their layout within the confines of the footprint that we're showing to you. And that's why we're showing a plan that has flexible options for different rooms, because that can be based on each individual client. These are generally, we're going to try to move to more sustainable houses. We're going to try to go all electric except for the gas in a gas grill and hot water heaters. There will be a homeowners association with design standards and maintenance, so that we'll have control over the various houses. All the garages will be pre-wired with electric charging stations as well. All the homes will be designed to accommodate an elevator, so anyone could age in place in these particular houses. We're shooting for them to be ENERGY STAR certified. They'll have closed cell foam insulation. We're going to be using high efficiency electric heat pumps for the heating and cooling. We're going to allow for future wiring for solar panels and backup batteries on them as well. And these models are kind of show you what we think is going to be the most popular. And then we're going to have the options that I spoke about before. I've worked with David O'Connell, who is one of the developers of this project, for over 20 years on many of our custom home projects. And we plan on putting a lot of the knowledge of those past 20 to 25 years and best practices to advantage in this project. I think that's it. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. James. We don't have any other direct questions for Mr. James.
Mr. James, I noticed on your plans, the drawings, that there's like a gable on the 3rd floor. Is there any access to that area?
Right now, that's only planned as a pull-down stair for mechanicals. As opposed to putting several gables for occupiable space, we wanted to have something on the roof as an architectural accent.
Okay, so it'll just be a pull-down stairs from like the
Yeah.
access to the hallway or something?
Yes, exactly.
All right. Also, I noticed that in the basement, you have one room labeled as a possible office or / bedroom.
Right.
Would that comply with the habitability requirements for a bedroom in the state of New Jersey?
Well, we would have to have, if you were going to make it a bedroom, it would have to have an egress window for it, and that would depend on the particular location on the property. So if it was going to be turned into a bedroom, we would have to add a window well for egress for that, yes.
Okay, so,
But it could be used as a home office.
right, so if it's built without the window or the second egress,
Then it cannot be a.
then it cannot be a bedroom, is that
Right,
correct?
that's correct.
Okay. Now, the evergreen edge, is that on Springbrook's property, or will that be part of this lot 1?
I'm going to have to go back to Rusty for that. I believe that the trees are very, very close to the property line and are going to be maintained.
Okay.
So that'll be, we'll have to go back and refer to his site plan on that. But my understanding is we're not intending to take away any of the evergreen trees. Those are supposed to be maintained as a barrier between the Springbrook Country Club and the new development. And they're one of the major aspects of the site.
And Mr. Chair, we have a witness who will testify on the tree removal replacement plan.
Okay,
So we'll
thank you.
go in detail on that.
All right. Was there any consideration given to any kind of solar panels on the roofs?
Yes, we are going to pre-wire for solar panels. It's going to, again, depend on the orientation and roof angles for the properties and the individual purchasers. But we are going to make arrangements so that solar panels could be added in the future for anyone that wanted to do that.
Okay. Thank you. Board members, any questions? Yes, Mr.
Did you have a question?
Do you have a question?
Sure, thank you. Mr. James.
Yes,
So are you familiar with the township ordinance regarding architectural design standards? Did you refer to that standard as you were designing these?
yes,
Okay. Specifically, are you familiar with the design standards regarding front-facing garages?
yes.
It seems to me you have 3 that are side-facing and 13 that are front-facing, and the ordinance wants to discourage front-facing garages and will permit it considering other things. And I mean, I could look at it here, but is there any way you would be able to remove all those front-facing garages and or otherwise meet the criteria for the garage door not being so prominent?
Well, one of the things we did to counteract that was to do a carriage-style door and to put an arbor type of element that was above that so that what faced the street would be much more pleasing. It's very difficult in a development where you're going to have houses like this closer together to put a garage on the side. And I would say that by altering those, we were trying to make it much more interesting and more varied. And it also reduces the amount of coverage for the site because it reduces the distance into the garage from the street. I think when you compare this to, kind of like townhouse and other type of developments that would have the garages there, or that might have a parking area all the way along the back so the garages could be in the back. We were trying to make these more of a decorative element on this as a part of trying to just work with the site efficiency. I feel like carriage-style garage doors make a big difference in a streetscape versus, solid hollow metal door or something like that.
And I agree with you on that.
So we're trying to treat it as a decorative element as opposed to a negative.
But would you say that one of the reasons you could not make all of these side facings because there just isn't enough room on the property to fit 16 homes and have side?
Yeah, I think when you're not doing something as a single family lot, it's much harder to do that. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Phillips, I don't know whether I'm just springing this on you, so it may take time. But in terms of this is really the first application we've had since the ordinance on design standards was passed. So this is kind of new for us. But is there a method for us to go through the ordinance to compare it to what's being proposed to see to what extent it's being met? Or is there a way to handle that?
Yeah, so I don't know if the rest of the board public's aware, but what you're referring to is that probably a year or two ago.
Yeah,
The township adopted certain design guidelines for various residential prototypes as well as commercial, retail, and industrial. And they're essentially, and they're in chapter 57. They're in the site design standards. They don't rise to the level of a zoning standard. And they're pretty much guidelines, as you said, discourages, encourages. So there is some flexibility depending on the particular context. I think you kind of, when you asked your question, I was listening to the witness's response. I think in this instance, given what they're proposing, the units are fairly close together. I would agree that they don't have the room, the way the layout is at the present time, to do either the side-loaded garage or maybe even rear-loaded garage, because the houses at certain points are angled, but they're close. And I think they're looking for a certain look, if I'm hearing the witness correctly. And I think he's indicating that the garage is actually, in this context, part of the decorative element. So obviously, the board should consider the guidelines that are in place in the site design ordinance. But also, given the context here, weigh the applicant's expert response in terms of why they felt this was a better option given this particular plan. I mean, that's how I consider it, and I think that's how the
Okay.
board should view it.
okay. And I do think overall, they did a good job with choosing materials and putting dimensions on the buildings and allowing for shade at the windows. I think the materials and the basic design to me looks very nice. But because it is a new part of the ordinance, one thing that stuck out to me was the front-facing garages, because they can be,
And I think realistically, Ed, the ordinance in terms of single family was looking at more conventional detached single family that are sitting on their own lot. And they have the ability, given the size and the distance between buildings, to do either a side or a rear loaded garage, so you don't have the front loaded. I mean, I think that goes
Yes,
without
I
saying that that's the
understand, right,
intent.
right,
And I think they're basically proposing a different animal here, if you will.
right. I understand. Okay, thank you.
I'd also like to point out that in our work and working on a lot of historic houses, you find that the older the house is, the closer it is to the street. And we work on very many historic houses in historic districts where front-facing carriage-style doors are an appropriate response to that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other board members with questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Just have a quick question, Mr. James. In your testimony, you had mentioned, as you were describing the layout of the neighborhood as scaled for the neighborhood. Were you referring to just the scale of this particular neighborhood or in the greater context of?
Really in the greater context, meaning it's a two-story house with a gabled roof above it. We're not trying to build a three-story house here or a 2.5-story house. We intentionally have a basement as opposed to trying to have a fully built-out attic.
Yeah, because when I look at sort of like an aerial view holistically of the area surrounding it, this in terms of the scale of the neighborhood, this seems to be a lot more dense than.
I would say this particular area is a little bit more dense than the single-family houses. If you go to the other side of Springbrook Country Club and you look at the townhouses or that, then this is much less dense than that. Yes. So it's I look at it as kind of a halfway point and trying to create something that's more scenic, a little bit more idyllic, and creating a little bit more of a kind of a village enclave atmosphere on a lot that doesn't allow you as much room. Would have been great if we had double the space.
And
that's why we're trying to focus it inward.
right. In terms of when you say folks are going to be, downsizing or moving, is that just based on your knowledge and history of other projects like this? I mean, they're large houses. So what is that based on? Just your experience
That's based on some of the marketing and the research that developers have done. And it's based on really my experience with the 700 projects we've done over the past 30 years. and trying to help them. This could be someone's initial house. I just don't think that's what it's going to be like. This is for someone that wants to be closer to the country club, for instance, closer to Morristown, and wants to partake in other things as opposed to having a yard to take care of and all of those type of things, is more interested in a homeowners association, is interested in design guidelines so that the neighbors are all fitting with the overall property and neighborhood, and doing something that's taller and has a basement and has an optional elevator, allows anyone of any age to age in place. So it ticks off a lot of things for baby boomers who are thinking about retiring. That doesn't mean it could not be appropriate for many other clients. When we're designing our houses, we really try to look at a layout that would work for anybody from a newlywed all the way up until aged and infirmed. And we're trying to create a house that would do all of that. And I'm not saying that it's, but these are not going to be starter houses.
Gotcha. And also, just for the purposes of helping educate the board as well, have you worked on projects similar to this in scope that are just being sort of put onto one lot versus individual residential lots?
Normally, this type of property would be more of a group development. I don't do a lot of group development, so this is one of the first ones that we're doing with this concept with them.
Okay, thank you very much.
And part of the reason I'm doing it with them is that we're going to be available to work with each individual homeowner to customize their house as opposed to everything's built the same.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one more question.
Yes.
Could you give us the range of the footprints of the houses?
Yeah. Yes, look. So the first floor living space in is approximately 1,536 square feet. And the garage is about 575 square feet. And the porch is 135 square feet. Second floor is approximately between 1,950 and 2,100 square feet. And the basement, if it was fully finished, could range up to 1,536 square feet. That's kind of a footprint of the rectangle. And
Okay,
that
but
would
that
be-
includes the second floor. So if it's just the first floor
the first floor would be 1,536
plus the garage,
plus the garage.
575,
Yes,
plus the porch,
porch of 135.
the 135.
They're like 4,000 square feet homes.
Right, but the footprint's 22, I have 2246 based upon that. Okay. And they're all the same, that's just the lower end
No, that is the footprint.
of all the homes?
Oh, yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
All right,
The
thank you.
variations will incur within the footprint.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Any other board members with questions? Okay, you have a question.
So, Mr. James, you mentioned a couple of times an association and certain design guidelines. Has there been any thought yet what those design guidelines would be?
There's been some, but the design guidelines have not been drawn up yet, to my understanding. We're working on those, but it's going to be along the lines of what I'm presenting to you now in terms of what the material finishes are going to be for the houses.
So would the unit owner or the association maintain the exterior? Let me rephrase that. Would the unit owner be required to maintain anything on the exterior?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. So,
But the idea would be that there would be design standards for the exterior of the house in terms of the finishes that could be used on the house. They're not going to be vinyl siding. They're going to have to be shingle houses that might be wood shingles, hardy plank, something like that. But it's going to be a higher end material.
So what's approved would not be alterable by the unit owner?
Probably not without the association's approval, yes.
Okay. Um,
And I can see where there would be a concern that after, these homes, let's say the development is approved, and, will these homeowners be able to evade, the kind of materials and finishes we talked about here?
Yeah, well, because, the pictures are very nice.
Right.
You did a really nice job with your plan. But if this were approved, based on what we're looking at, we would want to be certain
Of
that
course.
there wouldn't be some changes
And,
somewhere.
and we would,
down
of
the road.
course, consent or agree to a condition in the resolution where we would, when we're setting the standards for the entire HOA, have the involvement of the township to make sure that we're abiding by what we agreed to here, as well as not using anything and materials or designs that weren't contemplated or approved.
And those restrictions would have to be added to the master deed so that they can be enforced by the association against unit owners.
Makes sense.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I also had a question with respect to the what I'll call the bonus room over the garage,
Yes.
and you had a room in the basement, both of which are identified as possibly bedrooms. Is that right?
Bonus room over the garage wasn't conceived
No.
of as a bedroom. I think that would be much more as kind of a recreational area.
Okay.
I mean, in some sense, you may decide that you would do your recreational area over the garage instead of the basement. And the basement might be more of a storage room,
Mhm.
that type of thing. It kind of depends on the individual homeowner. So if you were not doing anything over there, then we might have a 1.5-story roof over the garage.
And what I'm getting at in part two is, what's the maximum number of bedrooms per unit?
It's 4.
So, all right, so if you had one on the first floor, 2 on the second floor, plus that extra rec room, right, there's 3, and then potential 4th in the basement. Is that about right?
I think you chose.
I thought there was a possibility of 5,
There is.
right?
There is.
There is. If you use the basement as well, it's
I
5.
mean, especially if you wanted to make everything a bedroom, but that's not what we're proposing.
So, what I'm getting at is the parking count. Because if you had 5-bedroom homes instead of 4, or 6-bedroom homes instead of 4, then there's definitely going to be a shortage on your parking counts. So I think you would have to agree that in a condition, if there's an approval, that no home could exceed 4 bedrooms. Would that be
Yeah.
agreeable?
Yeah, we'd agree to that.
How would that be enforced? Because somebody could come in and it's easy to build a bedroom.
Listen, I mean, every town has issues with enforcement. There's garages being turned into bedrooms, and I mean, that. But we will agree to do it. And I don't know, honestly, sitting here, how you would, and you would enforce it like any other. If you got a tip or someone called in, and you would go and do an inspection, and then you would issue a violation.
But it would be built as a maximum for 4-bedroom home.
Yes.
That's our intention, absolutely.
Yeah, the HOA could also enforce it. And if it's anything, an indication by these commercials on TV, HOA members are very nosy. And if they see a college kid living in the basement with 2
Yeah.
cars out in front, they're going to make a phone call.
And you're counting I know this isn't exactly architectural, but since we're talking about the parking versus the bedrooms, the garage spaces are being counted as parking in your count, correct?
We'll put that to our traffic expert when he
Okay.
comes up. I don't want to talk
All
out of
right, so
turn.
when he gets here, the
Yeah.
question will be
Right.
if the garages are counted in your number.
I understand.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Mr. Aller asked the same question I had.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Could you give us the square footage of these 2 different units, please? Total?
Well, the first one was the 1536, 575, 135, and the second floor is 2100 if fully built out. So that would be, I'll have to add it up. It's 4346. But that would not be the habitable area. The habitable area, you would take out the 575 for the garage and the 135 for the porch, and you would get 3636.
Does that include the optional rec area over the garage?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then the other one that would be the Jockey Hollow, and the Lewis Morris would be similar, but the second floor would be smaller at 1950 as opposed to 2100. So it'd be 150 square feet smaller.
Thank you.
Any other board members with questions? Any professionals? Yes.
How would you distinguish or differentiate between a carriage house and a detached single-family house?
Well, normally it would be, the carriage house is usually smaller than the main house, but I think it's very, very hard to distinguish between the two.
Okay.
Carriage houses come in all sizes, as do single-family houses. You know, and we've worked on various sizes for many. That's hard to distinguish. It's just like saying how big is a house.
Anything in the design or material treatment that?
We
I'm
felt
only asking
that,
because
well,
the
so
name
I
of
would-
this is carriage houses, you.
So
named,
part of the
you-
reason-
Let him finish, okay?
And
Okay.
I just want to be clear for the board and the public, how you would distinguish that from a detached single-family home. I mean, my sense is it's part of the overall sort of sales pitch for this product here.
I would say yes, it's part of the sales pitch, but I would also say that a carriage house has a slightly more informal feeling than the main house. And part of the reason we chose shingles and that type of image is that you would see a lot of cottages, carriage houses, and things like that that might be subsidiary to the main house. So that's why it's not a brick and slate roof type of thing.
I mean, historically, a carriage house was just that. It was a carriage house, which was much smaller than the main house. And again, I was just trying to see how you would distinguish that. I just have one other question. You mentioned that the floor plans are intended to be flexible. But I want to be clear, and maybe this, Frank, is more to you, that the footprint shown on the plan is fixed. I mean, this is not a subdivision where you would be building a detached single-family home, and all you'd have to do is stay within the building envelope footprint. I mean,
We were
correct me if I'm wrong,
proposing
you're fixed.
we're proposing a footprint with interior flexibility. Yes.
Okay, and I think that was clear from when you went through the floor plans and the renderings, but when you showed some earlier examples of style, architectural style, you did show, for example, bay windows. There were some staggered facades, and I just want to be clear that the intent here is that you would have to stay within the footprint shown on the plans. Okay.
I have one more question.
Sure.
You did mention that these have the option of an elevator. Where in the plans would the elevator go?
I think we would put it in the front, near the powder room, where the entry closet is. We also might alter the stair slightly and put it in the corner where the stair goes up.
Okay.
And Mr. James, the elevator you're talking about is not what people think of as a typical elevator, right?
This would be a residential elevator.
Right, so it has like a not a curtain, but a pull-over door.
Yeah, it would have a door that closes and it would have a retracting door inside that you hand pull over. Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
Any board members, any other questions?
This would be for someone that wants more access to all the levels, or someone that might be impaired, has a knee operation, things like that. We design a lot of our houses with stacked closets for future elevators for clients.
Okay, any other board member questions? If not, I will open it up to the public. Any
Actually-
members of the public
I have one, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, if I may. Are there going to be any accessory buildings or structures, sheds, any sort of other secondary buildings on the property, or is it the house and nothing else is allowed?
We're not planning any secondary buildings. The only other thing we talked about was a possible gazebo at the central space, but not for individual houses.
So the house isn't going to have a shed or
We're not going to have a tool shed.
tools
on
or
the
anything like
backyard,
that.
right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, professionals and staff. My name is Robert McBriar. I'm an attorney with the law firm of St. Clair Smith & King. We represent a group of residents that reside in the area. That list has been submitted and is on file with the board secretary. I appreciate the comments and questions and answers.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Because that just brings me to a point. Did the board members all review that list of clients that were provided? No. Do you have it? Because if anybody has a conflict based on that list, I want to make sure it's known.
Why don't we take a second and just pass that around?
Sorry, I didn't do that at the beginning,
it's
but I just want to get it
important.
done.
No, it's important. It was marked as 01, that list.
Yeah, but this list is a little different, so I think when it
It's an
comes back
updated
on the
one.
mark, this
Oh,
is
okay.
02, it's been updated.
We'll mark this one as O2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can
We'll
have a
get your
copy?
copy.
Okay.
To see if there's any conflict of interest.
Yeah, family member.
Uh-oh. No, I'm just kidding.
And what's the criteria? I'm sorry, family member?
Yeah, family member.
I can have that, sorry.
I label mine as O2.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Many of the questions that I had were answered. I have a few questions, Mr. James. Are you familiar with the average distance between them for the proposed homes?
If you look at the site plan, I think it shows a minimum distance of 15 feet between houses. That only occurs in a couple of cases. I would say the average distance between the houses is closer to 25 feet. Sometimes it ranges as high as 45 feet. And the distance between the front garages gets closer to that 45 to 55 feet. There are a couple that are like 65. You're going to find this is not a straight road with all parallel houses, so there's not a fixed point. And usually if there's a smaller dimension, the houses are angled, so there's a larger dimension as well. So yes, it varies throughout, but the average is probably closer to 25 feet.
Is that proximity typical or consistent with the immediate neighborhood, in your opinion?
I think it's certainly much greater than the adjacent developments that are around the golf course. This is not a single-family proposal.
And in your opinion, Mr. James, is that proximity typical for the size and style of these proposed homes?
I think if you were, totally depends on the lot configuration zoning. I work on houses that are this size that are 3 feet apart in historical districts. So no, I wouldn't say that this is unusual for a house of this size to have 25 feet as an average separation.
And can you confirm that you yourself did not independently perform any studies or analysis for the need for this particular housing type?
Object to that. I don't know what you're asking.
I'm asking if your architect did any analysis or study to determine whether there was a need for this housing type in the area. I think that dovetails with one of the comments one of the board members had.
Well, a need study? I'm not sure I've ever heard of that.
I'll let him answer it if
Yeah,
he can.
Okay, I just never heard of a need study like that, but go ahead.
We don't normally do marketing studies for our clients. That's normally done by an independent research firm. I would certainly say that we feel like there's a strong demand for this product, yes.
And Mr. James, specifically, what characteristics of the proposed homes that you designed do you contend are consistent with the immediate neighborhood?
I certainly think the character and detail of the houses is very similar to what's built in the mid-century and before. All of these houses have historical references and connotations. And I feel like that makes it much more fitting in the Morristown neighborhood, and particularly what's around the golf course at this point as well. The materials that are used here are certainly equivalent to anything within a few mile radius of the golf course, yes.
And given the proximity to homes to one another, was privacy a concern, or did you incorporate that into your design proposals?
We feel like these homes are going to be very private inside.
In other words, the sides of the houses, are there fewer windows? Can you expand on that?
No, we still have windows because they're not parallel and very, very tight together. They're spaced apart appropriately. They've not been set totally parallel between each other so that there's more interest and variety, because the distance between the houses varies as opposed to being a straight line. There's also topographical differences in the houses, raised and lowered on the site. And the materials and the details around the windows still offer privacy. 25-foot distance between houses is not uncommon in many residential areas.
And my last question, the homes are directly viewable from the country club dining room, is that correct?
The homes are screened by the trees that surround the property. And from the country club dining room in the winter, if you're looking through only deciduous trees, you probably see it a little bit more than you do in the springtime, much like your neighbor's house next door anywhere in America.
Other members of the public with questions? Yes, Mr. Schillings.
Yes, 30 Shillings, 5 Spring Hill Lane.
But the country club.
Lived in the township for 40 years and I'm in the Springbrook neighborhood. Just had a couple follow-up questions for Mr. James. First of all, can you put up on the screen the actual elevation look of what these townhouses are going to look like? Or single family? Let me see the front view. All right, I guess that's fine. I ran an engineered products manufacturing company, so, and I'm not up on all this zoning business, but I lived in the Springbrook neighborhood for 40 years. And I just thought some of your pictorial things, concepts from which we drew from, were so beautiful and elaborate. Reflect some of the homes in our neighborhood, like some shore homes. And then you come up with this. And you've come up with a square footage of 3,500 to 4,000. Now, this attorney asked you the question. In our neighborhood, 15 feet closest up to 35, 40 feet, separating 3,500 to 4,000 square foot homes. In our neighborhood, is this a typical to the environment of our neighborhood? Now, you constantly bring up the townhouses off 202 on the other side. Let's go into the Springbrook neighborhood, Springbrook Road, Armstrong Road, where we have beautiful, well-established homes. Springbrook is a beautiful area of our township, always has been. How does this cluster or this closeness compare with the rest of the neighborhood? Have you actually driven around?
Can you let him?
Mr. Schillings, we need to let him
You
answer.
gotta let him answer a question.
I have driven around the neighborhood, yes, and we've done work in Morris Township, Morristown, all around this area. These houses are closer together than individual single-family lots, but they're not uncommonly close together, and they're spaced in a more scenic way rather than being cookie cutter, uniform roads parallel to everything. And we're trying to create an environment that focuses inside so that we're creating a small community in this particular property. And we're trying to work within the confines of the existing topography, the shape of the lot, and all of the mature trees that are there to come up with a concept that makes this appropriate for this area.
Well, I appreciate that effort because, and you're kind of reflecting our neighborhood and our community, trying to make this fit. You had a pictorial of sweeping staircases. Is that house going to have a sweeping staircase?
Well, this house has a nice staircase that starts with,
Well, can I interrupt here? You showed.
Let him, you ask the question, let him answer the question. One question at a time.
a few staircases that curved up and went up to the top floor. And if you look at this one, this starts with,
How about a picture?
Let him
Stop doing
Mr.
that.
Schillings,
I mean-
let him answer the question. You've got to let him answer the question, and then you can ask your next question.
I mean, I think this is a great staircase. When we finish it, it'll be beautiful. And you come down and it has exposed newels that curve out on both sides. It has a rounded portion at the bottom stair. It goes up to a nice landing, comes up to another landing, and then goes up to the second floor. Has open railings and spaces up to the second floor. Over top of the great room here, we have a double height balcony that looks down and back to the staircase. Yes, it's going to be like some of the photos. It's not going to be exactly. One of the ones I showed you was curved as opposed to rectangular. And we're here presenting a concept for all of these houses to you for approval. And then we're going to work with particular owners on developing the interiors of each one of these houses. And I would expect them to be of the quality and the character of the photographs we showed. Yes. That's why we're working on the project.
So are you finished?
Yes.
Okay. I guess my concept is for lay people looking at this sweeping, beautiful pictures and then looking at an actual architectural drawing here. I can't visualize that. I appreciate the member's comment over here about.
Mr. Schilling, there's got to be questions right now. No, you have an opportunity to speak
At the end.
at the end, yes.
So I'd like to ask another question about these front-facing garages. Of the 16 homes, how many of the homes will have a front-facing garage door?
Um, 13 are front facing and 3 are side facing.
And 13 out of how many?
16.
So I'll address that in my closing comments, but that seems to be, I hear the things about garage doors and stuff. And we all have-
Here we go.
Larry.
It's a question and answer.
I've got to ask a question.
Yeah, all right. A question, so you pretty much projected square footage of these 16 freestanding homes to be somewhere between total square footage, 3,600 to a little over 4,000 square feet. I'm just curious, do you know how those 16 new homes would compare with the established homes in the Springbrook neighborhood, size-wise?
It really varies by house and by the size of the lot.
What would you consider that size home, and 16 of them, to be on the larger size homes of our neighborhood?
They're probably in the upper half. Yes.
16, pretty much 16 together. That's it. One other question, maybe. You brought up the evergreen tree in Springbrook, and you're hoping it survives or it remains there. And I don't know if this is a question for you that we'll be asking later. Is there any way we can build into the contract that if indeed those beautiful tree lines that provide a buffer between the homes and the golf course don't survive, the install that the developer will have to replace?
That would be the association would have to undertake that obligation, because by that time, the developer would probably
That's
be,
out of your realm.
no, it would have to be, it would be, if it was be done, it would be done as being mandatory in their bylaws that they would do it. It'd be a restriction in the approval.
Okay, that's all I have to know.
Yes, sir, your name.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Richard DeAngelis, the law firm of Donald Foley, I'm here on behalf of 236 Mount LLC. Mr. Shealy, the owner of that LLC, owns the property on the other side of the project that's served by the easement running through this project. I really didn't intend to ask a question of the architect, but you said something a few moments ago, sir, in response to Mr. Schilling's question regarding this development as compared to the other single-family homes in the area. You said, please correct me if you believe I'm incorrect, that this proposed project, these homes are not, quote, uncommonly close together. Do you recall saying that?
Yes.
Okay, but this is the first time you've ever developed a project like this. You conceded that earlier in the testimony, correct?
I said that this is not the main thing that we do. We mostly work on individual houses,
Respectfully, sir, have you ever developed a project like this?
not of 16 houses like this. This is a new development for us.
I apologize, thank you. So you don't really have any basis to conclude that this project that's proposed, the homes are not uncommonly close to one another for this neighborhood?
You've asked that already. He gave you
No,
an
I didn't
answer.
ask that. You know I didn't ask that.
You absolutely asked that. You asked it 2
Let
minutes
him
ago.
answer the
Let him answer.
question. We can take it into account.
So you really don't have any basis for the conclusion that the homes are, quote, not uncommonly close together for this neighborhood?
Well, if I base it on my experience over the last 42 years and the 700 houses and the 700 neighborhoods we've worked in and the places I've lived and the historic projects that we've worked on, these houses are not uncommonly close together. I stand by that.
That's based on what then?
Asked again.
I appreciate.
Excuse me, sir. He's answered the question.
Based
He's given
on
you
my
his basis based on
experience.
his experience. It might not be the answer you like, but that's what he's answered, so.
But how about as compared to this neighborhood? What specific are you basing it on? This project in this neighborhood? Springbrook.
One more time, the last time.
I think we're going to have more testimony later on by our planner in terms of sizes of houses in the neighborhood and how this compares to that. So rather than me opine about that, I think that's the appropriate time for the question. But there are many houses in the neighborhood that are 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. So a 3,600 square foot house compared to that is not out of ordinary for this neighborhood. No.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank
You're welcome. Any other members of the public with questions? Yes.
So,
I understand correctly that you have two floor plans for this project?
Yes, we showed 2 floor plans for the project, and we expect to work with individual homeowners to develop variations on these plans and options and different window details and different treatments and things like that. We expect the footprint to stay the same, but we expect the variations within the units to give us ample ability to keep this from being 16 houses that look alike.
So then you're going to be designing the 16 exteriors as you go
We are
along.
going to be working with each individual homeowner to develop this plan for them. Yes.
What is your definition for carriage house?
A carriage house was historically where the carriages were and where the drivers later on lived above. So it would have been where either your carriages, your horses, or your early cars were stored, and it would have normally had living quarters above it.
Certainly these homes don't. Definitions.
Well, we're using that imagery for these homes, and we're trying to create something that is in that vein.
Carriage homes in Northtown.
Yes, I've seen carriage homes in several places. I'm working on several carriage homes now. We've built and rebuilt several carriage homes. Carriage homes very often get turned into regular homes, and we work on a lot of those as well. And we felt that carriage homes, in terms of dealing with the developers and using that nomenclature, was a proper definition of what we were trying to shoot for here, which was a downsized home for people that want to age in place. And I still think that's a good strategy and a good description of what we're trying to accomplish.
Is this project
I'm sorry?
Is this project age related?
I don't think it's age restricted, no.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask a follow-up to the witness based on some of these questions. Is that okay?
Just let me finish the public portion.
Sure.
Any other members of the public with questions? If not, I'll close the public portion. You may ask your questions.
Mr. James, you've had a couple questions about carriage houses, definitions of carriage houses, et cetera. Did you use the term carriage house on these plans to deceive the public or the township as to the size of these houses?
No.
Yeah, and in fact, sir, was it hidden or did we not disclose what the size of the homes were in our plans?
No, it's
Okay,
disclosed.
so everybody is aware what the size of these homes are, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
And I'd also like to add, I'm currently working on 2 carriage houses that are larger than this. Just
Thank you.
FYI.
Okay, board members, any other questions? Professionals, any other questions?
I do have one more question.
Okay, Ms. Bilber.
I know later on we're going to be hearing from the landscape architect on this project, but you did mention things like the topography, the size of the lot, the mature trees. You referenced them. This board, we have a report from our environmental commission, which sort of, as they took a look at it and assessed it, was thinking in terms of the mature trees, if the project was reduced by maybe two homes, that more of those mature trees could be preserved. And I know we'll get into this with the landscape architect, but just from an architecture, is there anything you can comment on in terms from an architectural perspective, if it was reduced by 2 homes, the spacing and would it be more architecturally pleasing and an experience to drive through in terms of?
The reason I showed the initial photographs of the evergreen trees and the deciduous trees along the edge of the property was because I felt that those were the dominant trees. And I feel like most of those are going to be maintained, period, no matter how many houses you have on the property. Because they are at the perimeter, they provide the screening, and they provide the defining edges for the property. and you have mature trees on the bottom two portions of the triangle downhill. And the hill is what provides the privacy going up the hill, the topography. So I would say that those are the predominant trees that we would want to save, and that create this as kind of a separate enclave, and were instrumental in how we thought about the site to begin with. And then you would be adding additional plantings and things under those trees. One or two houses isn't going to make any difference, because what you're trying to do is maintain that border and design the houses around that on the inside.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a
Yes.
question. These slides, some are representative of what they're proposing and some are of the neighborhood. Are we going to get some, is that going to be included as part of their testimony? And are we going to be able to view these, or
These slides,
this series of slides?
we have, that's been marked in evidence. We do have a hard copy, and there is a
digital copy.
digital copy.
Okay. We don't need all those slides, right? It's
No,
tons of
I mean,
slides on
no,
that.
but we have a digital copy. of the
You
entire
have a
presentation.
hard copy and a digital copy both, and they were submitted in November.
Are you referring to these?
No,
Well, that's the hard
no,
copy of the
this- We
plan.
have this hard copy sitting right here. Of the slide.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Okay.
Any other questions by board members or professionals? Seeing none, why don't we take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back. 5 minutes.
Thank you.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, Ms. Sandia, you roll call again, make sure everybody's here.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Goldberg,
Yes.
Here.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Here.
Mr. Schuster,
Here.
Mr. Benoit,
Here.
Mr. Kramer.
Here.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Kramer arrived at 7:18. Mr. Woodford,
Here.
Mr. Hanson,
Here.
Mr. Phillips,
Here.
Mr. Fishinger,
Here.
Mr. Oler,
Here.
and I, Sonia Santiago, here.
Okay.
So I just want to get back to Mr. Kramer 1 second. Now that you mentioned that, Sonia, thank you. So we were maybe 15 or 10 minutes into the application, so you will need to listen to the tape or read the transcript for the time you weren't here.
I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
And there will be a test.
It was mostly housekeeping items, but
I'm sure.
yeah.
Okay. Next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. We would like to recall Rusty Schomer.
Mr. Schomer, would you stand, raise your right hand? I know we swore you before, but we'll do it again. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I
So help you God. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Schomer, good evening. You have prepared a couple exhibits here, the first of which is a site plan exhibit, and I'm going to ask that this be marked A5. Mr. Aller, is that where? A5, yes. So could you please pull that up for the board? Sure. Okay, sir, we're going to go over some of the comments that we received in the traffic review and also some other comments we received from board members.
Just 1
Yes,
second.
sure.
Is this part of the additional package that was submitted?
Yes.
This was, yes.
And which exhibit is part of the package is it?
This is entitled Site Plan Exhibit, the one entitled Site Plan Exhibit.
Okay.
What's the sheet number?
The sheet number is
2.0?
correct.
Yes.
Correct.
So,
I got it in front of me.
yeah,
It's like page 4. Right. I threw everything else on the floor.
No.
yeah, let's do that. Okay.
I got one. I have one. Oh, I have a large copy.
I have, you want the little one, I'll give you the little one.
Sure, yeah, that's one. Thank you.
All right, so again, Frank, just for the record, we're marking A5, which is sheet CS 2.0, and the sheet title is Site Plan Exhibit.
Correct.
And that's what's up on the screen.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Schomer, there was a traffic review comment number 6, and it related to the way a fire truck navigates the site. And the comment was that it's generally acceptable, but there was a question about how the truck can navigate the turn around the area across from unit number 2. So could you just explain what this drawing shows and how a truck would navigate in such a way?
Sure. So what, we had a meeting with the fire chief on January 12th, and because he had provided a prior report. And in that meeting, we discussed some adjustments to the plan, and we wanted to demonstrate the maneuverability of a fire truck. What this exhibit shows, among other things, is in red, you see, so you see the red outline of using the fire truck template, turning template provided by the fire department. We show the turning maneuvers, the maneuverability of the fire truck, how it enters, and how it can go around the island that's in the center. And then at the end, in response to the fire chief's comment, we actually made the backup area that we had there, we made it larger to allow a fire truck to back in and maneuver around. We reviewed the dimensions of that turnaround area with the fire chief and provided the fire chief subsequently with a plan which was identical to this in terms of the layout shown for the turning movements and so forth. And really the concern, or what the fire chief wanted to be able to achieve at the end, was be able to have a truck turn around at the end. And while it's you're not going to make a full, loop type of system, to be the ability to pull back, pull forward, pull back if you need to, but have the room for trucks to be able to turn around at the end was what he requested. And we reviewed the dimensions, and he looked at this and then subsequently issued the letter that you have a copy of. And I know there was another comment, and we don't show it here, but another comment actually that came from the board's traffic consultant about entering into the site. And we don't show actually the turning movement entering into the property off of Springbrook Road, but we did look at that and looked at the templates, and that fits. The fire truck can enter and exit the site adequately.
And Mr. Schomer, if need be, we could submit a truck turning sketch for that movement, correct?
We could, sure.
Okay, and we will if the board desires. Mr. Schomer, could you confirm that all of the refuse collection and snow and leaf removal will be handled by the homeowners association?
Yes, it will.
Okay, and I assume the client will contract with a qualified insured service provider for those services,
I'm sure they will.
and that the equipment used will be appropriately sized for the site?
Correct.
Okay, are there any potential areas on the site for snow and leaf storage?
There's some areas.
You could get up and point to the screen, I
Yeah,
guess.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
Probably, sure.
You may use the microphone, the wireless one.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on. So, I mean, basically, placement for snow would be along the edge of the roadway. There's some areas, the island between where there are driveways between some of the units, and And as I say, along the edge, we have a sidewalk on this edge, but basically the green areas, the grass areas adjacent to the roadway is primarily where you'd first put snow. If we get that much of a snowfall and there's no more space on site to put it, then it would be necessary to have it loaded up and carted away. Is always an option, but there are spaces on the site distributed throughout, like you'd see in many single-family home areas.
Okay, and switching gears a little bit, Mr. Schomer, there was a comment or question about site triangles for this site, in particular with respect to Springbrook Road and our new Road A.
Yes.
Did you look at the sight lines at these intersections, and did you come to any conclusions on that?
The sight lines are good. Springbrook Road is straight along this section. Sight lines are available. And I know this was a comment we got recently in the traffic engineer's report. If requested, we can provide sight lines of sight along Springbrook Road from the new entrance road.
Okay, and Mr. Schomer, there was in traffic comment 8 a question about gore striping. First, what's gore striping?
Well, that's in the area where right at the entrance, we have an island. So it's divided, and you can see there's some striping in that area. And the comment was simply that it be compliant with the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, the MUTCD, and yes, it will be.
Okay, there was also a question about the RSIS requirement, and there were 2 issues there. The first was with respect to the driveway widths of 20 feet. I understand there is certain units do meet that, but I believe there's 4 units that do not. Is that correct?
Right, there's 4 units identified that weren't quite 20 feet wide. They are wide enough for entry and exit, certainly. But it's the deeper units where you'd be driving in and then turning to pull into the garage. So to the extent that we would need a de minimis exception from the RSIS standard, that would be part of our request.
Okay,
Which units can you identify?
Sure. Units 3, 4, 13, and 16. Okay, and sir, there's another RSIS issue that was identified in connection with a 20-foot wide cartway.
Correct.
And we're also looking for a de minimis exception as well. Could you just explain to the board what that involves?
Sure. The width of the new private road is at 20 feet wide, and we had testified to this at the last meeting, but it's a 20-foot wide road. And that would require a de minimis exception from the RSIS. We have used this 20-foot wide standard in other projects within the township. A good example of that is James Place, which I think was 92 units on James Street. And we had a similar design where we had a 20-foot wide cartway sidewalk. And so it was very similar to this with some parking along the street, some visitor parking spaces that we have similar to here. So that was a good example of a design that has been functioning well.
Could you just say, what was the location of the 20-foot wide?
Where was that?
Yes.
It's a development called James Place on James Street.
Because board members might want to go out and just take a look at it.
Sure, it's a
The
good.
public might want to go out and take a look at it.
It's a good example of that, yes. And it allows us to have a little less cartway width, which allows less impervious coverage. 20 feet is adequate for two-way traffic, certainly. And this is even a less dense, fewer units than that project.
Okay, Mr. Schomer, there was in traffic review comments 3 and 5, a question about the potential limited utility of the sidewalk since it's interrupted by parking spaces. And the recommendation was that we extend the sidewalk across the driveways of the units in question, and I'll identify them. Units 12 and 13 and 13 and 14. So it's actually just 12, 13, and 14. Nonetheless, sir, is that something that we would agree to do?
We could do that. We could make a modification to allow the sidewalk to extend across those areas.
Frank, sorry, but that would apply at 15 and 16 also, correct?
I'm going to ask Mr. Schomer that.
That would be, where is it, those numbers? The sidewalk across the, yeah,
So
the side, where it's basically where we have the parking spaces and the sidewalk comes up to the side of the parking spaces.
Yeah.
And-
So,
and-
Mr. Fishinger, we got this from your report.
yeah, that's why I was saying,
Yeah.
maybe I can clarify. There's actually two different concerns.
Right.
Between the first concern was where the perpendicular parking is, that the sidewalk, if someone's parked there and you just walked in a straight line, you'd be walking into the car. And then generally speaking, along the entire, I guess, eastern side where there is a sidewalk, the way I'm understanding the plans, you have an asphalt driveway right out to the road. My recommendation that the concrete sidewalk continue with a traditional concrete apron so that the sidewalk grade stays level and instead of coming up and down for driveways, so that the sidewalk looks like a constant sidewalk.
So you don't have a slant.
A slant, and just from visually that the sidewalk is concrete and goes straight through instead of it being concrete asphalt at every driveway. So they're two different
Understood.
comments.
Yeah, we understood, and we could adjust the plans to be consistent with your recommendation on both of those counts, both of those items.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schomer. Let's turn to lighting. During the last hearing, there was a comment about the one light we're proposing on a single mounted pole. Will that light be dark sky compliant?
Yes, yeah, and we have a note on the plans indicating that lights will be dark sky compliant.
Okay, and with respect to the remaining lights on the site, they'll be limited to the individual homes and regulated by the HOA master deed, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, sir, you prepared your office prepared an environmental impact statement that was submitted to the board. I just want to ask you just a couple questions about that. To confirm, sir, there are currently no stormwater controls on the project site that control runoff. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and for this proposed project, a new stormwater management system has been designed in accordance with the best management practices that meets NJDEP's requirements. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, it follows then, sir, that stormwater management will be improved, not exacerbated by the project. Is that right?
So, and we do an analysis, as we do for every project regarding stormwater management, looking at existing conditions and then proposed conditions. And then, like other projects, we designed and implemented a stormwater management system here for collection, treatment of stormwater runoff, so that when we compare the proposed conditions to existing conditions, we have less peak flow of runoff. We meet the groundwater recharge requirements and water quality treatment requirements in accordance with the New Jersey DEP stormwater management rules. And that applies here because the project technically qualifies as a major development under the stormwater management rules. So the stormwater management report that we prepared and submitted was done in compliance with those requirements.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schomer. I'd like to show this witness what I'm going to have marked as A6. This is a plan titled Area Map with Riparian Zones. The sheet number is CS 3.0. Mr. Schomer, if you could bring that exhibit up.
Yes.
Okay, sir. You met with the Environmental Commission of Morris Township to discuss their comments on this project. Is that correct?
We did, yes.
Okay, based on your field investigation, Does the project site contain any areas of freshwater wetlands?
No, it does not. We did a site investigation some time ago and did not find any wetlands. I mean, we looked at the environmental potential issues on the site as part of our normal due diligence. So we don't have any wetlands on site to be concerned with.
Okay, and will our project result in any disturbance to freshwater wetlands or wetlands transition areas in other areas of these properties?
No.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's all I have for Mr. Schomer this evening, and we open to board questions. Thank
Do you
you.
want to look at this exhibit?
Hmm?
Discuss this exhibit?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Schomer, you've got the, on CS 2.0, I guess, you have the diagrams of the fire truck being able to basically make a reverse K-turn to pull out. Is that correct?
At the end of the road, yes.
In the road. The diagram shows the truck entering up onto that driveway. What would happen if there is a car parked in that driveway?
Then you might have to make an extra turn to back around.
And did you discuss that with the fire chief at all?
That was not discussed with the fire chief.
Okay. And the area where they back into, is that going to be a no parking zone?
Yes, it's reserved specifically for a turnaround area. And we actually had that on the plans previously.
Right.
We enlarged it as a result of our discussion with the fire chief.
How much did you enlarge it?
We may, I'm going to say probably about 10 feet, maybe 10 feet deeper and a little wider, but I don't have the exact dimensions in front of me. But we did have an area there, and we made it wider and deeper to address the fire chief's concerns about turning around and having space there to pull into.
Did you talk to the chief about if there's a car parked in that area where the diagram is? Did you discuss that specific situation with him? If there's a car parked in that driveway?
In the driveway at the end you mentioned?
Yes, in unit 1.
Yes, yeah, you asked that. No, we didn't talk about that specifically.
Okay. How is the no parking in the turnaround area going to be enforced?
Well, there will be signage there indicating it's no parking, it's for emergency use only. And that would be an enforcement by the HOA to have no parking there.
And would that include towing?
It certainly can, yes.
I'm looking at the plans here, and at unit 12, you got a 20-foot wide driveway, but how long is that driveway? Out to the sidewalk, not to the street, but to the sidewalk.
The depth of the driveway?
Yeah, how long is it?
I'd have to scale it to be sure.
I'm concerned. Let me tell you my concern. My concern is if there's a car parked there, it's going to extend into the sidewalk.
Right. So when we can adjust the sidewalk and bring the sidewalk adjacent to the curb line essentially. But we'll look at that and have space.
Can you let me know how long that driveway is? Because that's a real concern.
Sure.
Can you do
Okay.
it right now?
I just scaled it. On the inside of the curve, it's 20 feet. On the outside of the curve, it is 25 feet.
So on the inside curb, you have 2 cars in that driveway, and you're not going to put it the cars right up against the up against the garage door.
Right.
How much, say it's 3-4 feet from the garage door, will it be extending into the sidewalk?
It's hard to say what size car will be.
Well, SUV, like everybody else drives.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, look at a typical parking stall is 9 by 18, and the car itself is probably about 16 feet, 15 or 16 feet. So sounds like there'd be some room. There's not a lot of room, but if there's 20 feet, a typical car would be able to park in it.
So, Mr. Chairman, we'll look at that. Of course, we want to have sidewalks that
Right.
people can walk on, and that'll be part of the success of our development. So we're not going to have cars blocking the sidewalk. So it's a good question, and we'll definitely get back to you on how that all is going to work.
You were talking about snow removal, and you said the first order would be pushing up against the sides of the roadway, up on the grass, right? Correct?
Typically, a plow is going to push it off to the side and would push it off behind the curbing. Yes.
Right. And so would that impact the sidewalk?
Well, the sidewalk would need to be kept clear on that side. So it would have to go beyond the sidewalk into the lawn areas on the other side of the sidewalk.
Okay. And typically a plow doesn't go right up to the curb and scrape along the curb. So there's usually some out into the roadway, a couple of feet, correct?
Here we have battered curbing here, so I mean you can go pretty much up to the curb and push it over onto the side. So you have to maintain certainly a traveled way, so you have to have enough space for 2 cars to pass by. So it'd be pushed off to the side to maintain that.
And what about the parking spaces that are shown on the plan? Will they be cleared also?
They would have to be cleared also, yes.
I've got a question on the parking spaces, if I can go back to that. Say like this project was in existence, these houses were there, and 3 people decide to hold a Super Bowl party. 3 houses decide to hold Super Bowl party. Where's everybody going to park?
They may have to park off-site and get rides here, car share, what have you. But there's not, you can't have parking all along the street here. So they'd have to make accommodations for that, like anywhere where you have limited parking areas. You have to account for that and make accommodations for that.
Most people aren't going to go park off-site. They're going to pull up, stop on the street, say I couldn't find anything, and come on in. You realize that. Being human nature. And we have to deal with human nature, not just rules and regulations. So how are we going to account for that?
That would be, again, the HOA is going to be owning and maintaining the infrastructure, the private road. So that would really be an enforcement issue there in those times by the HOA.
When you say dark sky compliant, can you just explain that for the public? They might not know what that means.
It's sort of a designation regarding keeping light levels so that they are shining downwards, so we don't have light shining upward, so we don't have unnecessary light shining outward and upward, for example. So lights are designed so that the light illumination is directed where you want it and where you need it, and not just broadcasting out. So you wouldn't have spotlights, and so forth, which just shine out indiscriminately. Dark sky compliant lights they're focused on lighting the areas you want. So you don't have lights shining up and so forth. So there are designations for it. You can select light fixtures that are designed to be dark sky compliant. And that's what we've done here with the couple of lights along the street that we've proposed. And then again, since you have an HOA, which can and will control the type of lighting on the individual units that actually gives you much better control than, say, a single family home subdivision where everybody does their own lighting. Here, it can be controlled and monitored and regulated by the HOA. So the light fixtures we're saying that they would be dark sky compliant to meet that requirement.
Board members, any questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Could you tell us what the dimensions are of those guest parking spots?
They're 9 by 18.
Does that include the sidewalk?
Well, as we said earlier, in response to Mr. Fishinger's comment in his review memo, that we would be pulling those back so that now they're going to be deeper so that we can maintain the sidewalk.
When you say deeper, have you reached a dimension yet?
Well, not yet, but they'd be pulled farther forward so that the sidewalk passes behind the cars.
Sorry to jump
All right.
in there.
Thanks. I just have a question about the park. I don't know if you're the right person to talk to. So it looks like the only official entrance to that park is through the easement. Is that correct?
There's the driveway that comes in, with that easement is to the neighbor, but that driveway that comes in, that's the entrance into the park. We also wanted to show, actually, we added on this exhibit in response to some comments, the sidewalk that runs adjacent to Springbrook Road. We extended it to the right side as we look at the plan, and so that it runs the length of Springbrook, of our frontage on Springbrook Road, and then crosses across the frontage on Springbrook Road, and then that provides an access into the park as well, a pedestrian access.
And that's open to the general public, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So do people have permission to go down that easement roadway?
Which people?
Anyone who wants to get into the park?
Well, this land is part of this project and this development. So the easement is for the benefit of the neighbor. There's an easement there today for the benefit of the neighbor on lot 7, which is just below the park. So that's an existing access easement. We're actually widening that and improving that access, but maintaining an access. The easement is for that neighbor, but the property itself is part of the parkland and part of this project. So yes, it is open for access.
Okay, thank you.
So, excuse me, but Rusty, along the same lines, is that then the sidewalk that you're talking about that runs parallel to Springbrook Road would be
Yes.
maintained by the association?
Yes, it would be.
And the sidewalk as it goes into the park, same
Yes,
situation?
correct. All maintained by the association.
Right, so then the developer would agree to a condition if there's an approval that those sidewalks would be open and to the public and maintained by the association?
Yes. I mean, there's going to be, I think, hours that the passive park will not, like after dark. So, but maintained, yes, correct, at all times.
Right, but the sidewalk is a private sidewalk? It's within the
Our property.
association property?
Correct.
So there would have to be a public easement in your master deed that allowed that access?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Any other questions? Yes.
Chairman,
Very well.
on that point, Rich, does that mean it'll be a public path for anyone in the neighborhood who wants to get to the park?
Anyone, even outside of the neighborhood?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. I wasn't
Yes.
sure I understood that. So would there be parking along that easement for people who want to drive in to get to that park?
No parking.
There's no parking.
Correct.
So there'll be signage saying
Yes.
no entrance. But the park itself will be available to the whole neighborhood.
Correct.
Okay, anybody? So on the fire truck, so you're showing here that a fire truck can turn around. what happens if there's like a fire and there's 2 fire trucks and an ambulance and 2 police cars and everyone's scrambling up there because of the emergency? How is that handled?
Not unlike anywhere else where you've got, say, a cul-de-sac road where you have emergency vehicles. They drive in, get into position. The leaving, the departing is typically something of less urgency, but the fire department coordinates and access is done not unlike, like I said, other cul-de-sac streets, other developments. The concern that was raised by the fire chief was their vehicle, and theirs is the largest vehicle. So we looked at that to make sure that that they were satisfied that they could get in, maneuver, and exit.
Okay, I could just imagine if, you need 2 or 3 fire trucks and there's emergency going on and they're trying to cram themselves into there with an ambulance and stuff, it could be very difficult.
Yeah, we did get the fire department's approval of the
I
plans.
understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what thought, okay. On the roadway, 20 feet. I guess this is a question for Mr. Hanson. Is that a typical residential size road? I mean, it seems to be most residential size roads that I've seen, there's usually room for on one side for parking, if not on both sides.
RSIS standards allow a 20-foot road for low density. This is considered low density. You got James Place over at the intersection of Southgate and James Street. Those are all 20-foot roads, no parking on the street. Wheat Sheaf Farms on Deborah Drive at Cadena, those are 20-foot roads.
Okay.
There's no problems with traffic or anything of that nature. Even with today's Amazon van parked in the street because he's delivering something, cars can still go around the van and continue on your way. In this instance, it's a big cul-de-sac. Those other roads are through roads, but it's no different. It meets the standards for low density. And this would classify it as this.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, do they have sidewalks?
Wheat Sheaf does not. I don't know about James Place.
The reason I ask is when
James
you
Place
plow
does.
this road, well, should there be a minimum distance from the curb line to the sidewalk? Because when you plow the road, you're going to plow over the sidewalk.
Well, even our designs for road reconstruction that the township does for various roads, sometimes it's 2 feet, sometimes it's 3 feet. If it ends up on the sidewalk, then the sidewalk's got to get shoveled anyway. Then it gets put on the lawn side of the sidewalk.
Is there a standard width that the township has for its own regular roads as far as a minor road? Such like, pavement has to be 30 foot wide or?
Most of the streets that we reconstruct are either 26 or 30 feet, and we're reconstructing in place. And in some instances, we're putting the sidewalk in either 2 feet or 3 feet behind the curb. We don't have a standard because the width is generated by vehicle traffic and the need for parking. Sometimes we only allow parking on one side of the street.
So we generally go along with the RSIS standard?
So, Joe, is it a de minimis exception for the 20 feet in this case?
That it is, the way I'm reading RSIS, it is because of the parking stalls, that RSIS says with a perpendicular parking stall, you need a minimum of 24 feet. So since they're only proposing 20, I believe they said they would request the de minimis exception. So it's the reason that they need the exception is because they have the perpendicular parking along with the road. If they had accommodated the visitor parking some other way, they wouldn't need the exception strictly based on the width of the road.
That's all I have.
Can I ask another?
Sure.
So Rusty, I just want to get back to your turning template for the fire truck,
Yes.
right? So as Mr. Woodford pointed out, that template shows the fire truck going into probably about halfway at the driveway for unit number 1 in order to make that turn. And you indicated you didn't discuss that with the fire chief?
That didn't come up, correct?
Yeah, in my mind, that's kind of like an open item yet. Then I think that discussion should take place
Okay.
and the chief should specifically say that
That's
he's
okay.
okay with that or
Okay.
not okay
Sure.
with that.
Okay. We can go back.
Because if you have a car parked there, I don't see how you make that turn. I mean, unless there's a different template that you have that's going to show them that it works, but
Or you need, like I said, to make an additional point in your turn, but that's
maybe if
departing,
you
right?
can.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think in reality, what would happen is he'd go right up behind it and put the reverse on.
I think
That
he
car
just-
would get out of the
yes, I
way.
think he would push the
But-
car out of the
Oh,
way. When
that car
something's
would-
on fire, nothing gets in their way. I
Nothing
get it.
gets in. And I was thinking, the firehouse is 20 feet away from this property.
Mhm.
They are getting, I mean, if we can't put out a fire within 20 feet of fire, we got bigger problems than the roadways.
Okay, any other board members' questions, Mr.
I
Goldberg?
do, yes. Mr. Schomer, in the section 5, the project alternatives of the environmental impact statement, you call out and say the high-density multifamily housing is not being considered by the current applicant, which is understandable. When I look at the plans, I view it's not high-density multifamily housing, but it's just high-density housing in general. So can you just point out why that was called out or that distinction was made as part of the project alternative section?
Well, I simply wanted to point out that was not what was proposed here, and this is single family. These are single family homes. It's not a single family home subdivision, but they're single family homes. 16 are all on one lot, as we say. The multifamily townhouse type development was something that, quite honestly, we've looked at and has been discarded by this applicant. So I just wanted to mention that that had been considered in the course of what can be done here, looking at alternatives, but that's not being considered here.
Okay, thank you. But you would agree that it is high-density, single-family homes?
I'm
Or
not
how would
sure.
how would you characterize it?
I would characterize it as single family homes.
Just single-family homes. Okay, thank you. The project alternative section also says the alternative of no development is not feasible for the property owner. Would you happen to be aware if there's a modified development, or just, I mean, if no development is not an option, and this is the plan you're putting forward
It's
in your
vacant.
form?
It's vacant land. We're putting it to a use and a utility. It's unused. It's been used historically for miscellaneous parking, utility trucks, storage, staging areas. So it's really largely unused vacant land, and we're putting it to some appropriate use, in our opinion.
Thank you. In terms of the snow removal that was mentioned, I mean, there's not a lot of roads. There's one big road. In your experience, and it's probably costly, but given the amenities we've seen here presented to us as sort of the high-end, very luxurious amenities, was some sort of underground heating element, mineral coated, insulated snow melting so that, the snow sort of is mitigated. Maybe the HOA could bear the expense. I mean, it would be prohibitively expensive or very expensive from an electricity perspective, but have you seen that implemented in this type of or size development before?
I haven't seen it in this type of development. I've seen it on single family homes only. That wasn't not something that's been considered here.
Okay, thank you. And the last question is sort of just a housekeeping item for context for the board and maybe members of the public. Under Section 6, the required approvals, Item 1, which I guess you're in front of us tonight for, is the preliminary and final
site plan approval. Item 2, site plan and major subdivision approval at the county planning board level. Should it progress to that? Could you just sort of draw the distinction of what would be required there, or
Well, we have to get approval from the county planning board. So that's required of most all developments. And then the subdivision is part of this application.
okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions?
Sure, I have a follow-up.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Goldberg, for raising up the EIS, because there was a question I wanted to ask. I mean, it seemed like the environmental impact statement was a little short, particularly having to do with the wildlife and the trees in the area that is being built. You mentioned like there was a hawk there. And I don't know whether it was one hawk or 20 hawks. Was it an area where hawks go to? And the solution seemed to be that, well, once we tear down all these trees and build houses, we're going to build more trees and the hawks are going to come back. So I'm not sure what the real impact is of the development. It seems to me an impact statement talks about what the impact is going to be to the environmental areas, including the wildlife. And I felt like that was kind of brushed over. You referenced an area, like maybe it was a state listing of types of animals that belong in certain categories. But it wasn't clear to me that you really talked about the impact of the existing wildlife in the area if you tear down all those trees and build these houses. Is that something that's not really within the scope of an EIS?
Well, the request we got was to submit an EIS and to sort of a simplified one, but I mean we can in the EIS we did provide a map, and probably we should look at the maybe we could look at the other exhibit, but the plan, there was a plan submitted with the EIS, and basically what that reviewed was under the New Jersey DEP, the NJ GeoWeb study provides information regarding wildlife, and if you look at that, what we see is that there's rank 1 and rank 2 areas are identified. The Morris Township code with respect to environmental impact is concerned with ranks 3, 4, and 5, and we don't have any of those here. So what we identified simply is that it just simply lists that there's a habitat type of a riparian corridor, for example, and that's associated with the ponds and the stream that runs on the golf club property. That barely extends into the subject property. There's another area which simply indicates that there's a wooded area, and that's rank 2, but none of these rise to the higher ranks, which are of specific concern and identified in the Morris Township ordinance. They ask for specifically identified ranks 3, 4, and 5, and we don't have that here. The hawk is simply listed as an animal that is prevalent in the area, and not that it rises to of concern in terms of threatened or endangered species here. So what we find when reviewing the DEP data is that there are no specific wildlife of concern, identified specifically of concern in these areas. Once you get up towards Jockey Hollow area, that's an area that, in fact, you see it on the plan that was included in the EIS, that is specifically indicated as a higher level federal concern. But none of that extends to this property. The majority of this property is not identified as really being any rank, and it's classified as urban land, recreational. The golf club property is identified as recreational land, So the DEP studies and published information does not document any specific wildlife of concern on this property. We also looked at the DEP criteria, the regulated areas, which are riparian zones, are associated with ponds and streams. Those do not extend onto this subject property. They are limited to the golf club property and don't extend over as far as this. So we actually mapped that on one of the exhibits that was submitted more recently. So there's no regulated riparian zones. There's no floodplain, no flood hazard areas, other regulated areas, and there's no wildlife specifically identified of concern in any of the published or documented information provided by the DEP. So in short, there's not a concern with respect to adverse impacts. Much of the property, as I say, is open. There's a portion that is wooded. Our landscape architect will talk in more detail about the tree removal and tree replacement. We've modified that, and that was in the exhibit, one of the exhibits that was submitted. So there's really minimal environmental impact that we see based on our review of data and information for this property.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other board members with questions? Any of the professionals? Yes.
So you answered a lot of the issues in my review letter, Mr. Schomer. Just a couple of clarifications. I believe the architect had said that there was no outside buildings. I assume all lawn and maintenance will be done by the association. Is there provisions for landscape trucks, or how will that occur? Where would a landscape truck be staged when they have to come in and mow the lawn on the site?
And we hadn't gotten to the level of where the landscape truck might be situated. So I don't really have an answer specifically where they might park, but probably
we'll come up with, we'll look at that. We haven't looked at that yet.
Am I correct in assuming that there would be one company hired to mow the
Yeah.
lawn and trim the trees for the entire?
you wouldn't have 16 different people coming to
Well,
mow the
I
dirt.
was
Yeah.
more concerned with
Yeah.
is somebody going to have
Right.
each resident going to
Conflict.
have a lawnmower and be mowing their own little piece?
The HOA is responsible for maintenance of all the property in common.
Okay. Going back to the fire truck again, did I hear correctly that the fire truck may need to do multiple point turns, that it would have to back up and then pull forward and back up and pull forward to turn around? Is
Yeah.
that accurate?
Yes.
So since, as you heard, you may have to going back to the fire official to discuss Unit 1, can you discuss the same issue with Unit 2 as well? Since if they have to do that multiple jockeying back and forth, I'm concerned that they may have to drive. They may either want to or need to drive into the driveway of Unit 2 as well, and that one looks just a similar size to Unit 1.
Okay.
And then with regard to the sight lines, I just wanted to clarify that you will provide that site distance exhibit. And if possible, please show the landscaping on it
Right.
as well. It looks like there's a split rail fence along the roadway along Springbrook Road. Is that correct?
There's a decorative fence proposed along the
And
Springbrook Road frontage.
my concern would be to make sure that that fence does not block site triangles coming out
Sure.
of the site.
Okay.
Yeah, we will provide that exhibit, Mr. Messenger.
A question, Mr. Schomer. When this landscaping truck comes in, where's it going to park?
Yeah, we're going to get back to the board on that one. We're going to look into that.
Because you know how big they are.
Yeah.
Any other question from professionals?
That's it for me.
Any board members? Members of the public, any questions of this witness?
Robert McBriar, State Question. Mr. Schomer, in your fire truck turning template, you identify a truck length of 40 feet. Is that correct?
I'm going to say yes, but I like to refer to the template to be sure, yes.
And is this the truck length that you use for depicting the truck path and turn paths in red on your template?
Yes.
The information provided to you by the fire department on August 28th, the truck length of level 1 is identified as 41 feet 8 inches.
Whatever the size of the template was that they provided us, that's what we used.
Well, there's a discrepancy there. The 828 memo, 551 is 41 feet 3 inches. And the plan describes the truck length of 40 feet. I'm trying to ascertain whether your plan is correct, or if it's incorrect based on an inaccurate truck length.
And we're
Well,
talking about 1 foot, right? Okay.
We use the template provided by the fire department.
If I can draw the board's attention to I forget what exhibit it was, fire department memo, sheet 9, 828, the last page on that describes the total length is 41 feet.
That's correct.
Whatever the fire department indicated their vehicle was, they provided the size and the turning template for their vehicle. That's what we used.
So is it incorrect on the plan describing in your table that 40 feet in length?
I'll double check that, but we'll verify that.
And despite the comment, you can appreciate the concern because with a decreased width in the cartway at 20 feet and observing the path delineated in red, you can see how tight things are maneuvering throughout the site. So I think it was an appropriate question for the board to consider. Did you consult with the International Fire Code in designing your template?
As I said, we use the template provided by the fire department for the turning maneuvers shown.
And that was the sole basis for your preparation of the template, is that correct?
As we typically get the specific templates from fire departments in preparing plans, we ask what their trucks are, because it varies from fire department to fire department and municipality to municipality. So we commonly get their template, get their size of truck and use that. And that's what we did here.
Mr. Schomer, reviewing your template, there were a couple areas of concern that I had in reviewing, appreciating the template that you provided. The first is the incoming truck path appears to extend over the center line in front of units 12 and 13. Can you confirm that?
So what was your question again?
I said the incoming truck path appears to extend over the center line.
Yes.
Units 12 and 13, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that would also be true of the center line in front of units 9, 14, and 15, is that correct?
When the fire truck comes in, if they're responding to an emergency, you can expect that they're going to go beyond the center line to get to where they need to go.
Are there any other areas on your template where that's the case?
Well, the template, I think, speaks for itself. It shows the alignment of the fire truck, the path of the fire truck coming in, maneuvering around the island, for example, and then exiting. So you can see on the exhibit the path of that truck.
Does the incoming fire truck have to navigate around the island in order to get to the turnaround area, or will it continue straight along New Road A to get to it?
It could do either one.
Why did you not show the pathway from the area, from the island to the area in front of Unit 3?
quite frankly, it was so obvious that it could make it. We were more focused on making sure we could make it around the island. And then we looked at the maneuverability at the end.
So your answer is you didn't include this because it's so obvious. Is that
Well, it was that we could pull straight in to the end of the road, staying on the main portion of the road. I think that's fairly clear.
And additionally, near the entrance, you didn't show a truck path from unit 14 through the exit. Is that correct?
At the entrance onto Springbrook Road?
Yeah.
Well, as I testified to earlier, we didn't, that's not shown there, but we did look at that, and that the truck can make the entrance and exit from Springbrook Road into and out of the new Road A.
I think it would benefit the board's consideration if these gaps were amended. Is that something you would consider providing?
Counsel, what are you alleging here?
I'm asking questions, sir.
No, but you have to have a foundation for what you're asking. What is it?
There's a truck path and there are areas within the
Okay,
unit that
but
are-
this is what the fire department looked. Are you saying that the fire department did something wrong here?
Okay, let's not get into an argument.
Well, he has to have a foundation.
We'll give it the
I don't-
specific weight. And we all understand that when a fire truck comes in, people pull to the side and get out of the way.
The turnaround design, will that also encourage trash haulers and delivery vehicles to also use the driveway for unit 1?
The turnaround area at the back,
That's correct.
it's intended for turnaround of vehicles, including emergency vehicles. So anybody who needs to turn around at the end can use that area, because there will be no parking there, and it'll be signed and restricted from parking, so it is suitable only for a turnaround area.
Will the proposed permeable pavers have a weight tolerance sufficient for fire apparatus?
Yes,
What is their weight? You know?
they're designed for trucks like fire trucks and other trucks.
Are there areas where the truck path overlaps the curbing? I know in front of units 2 and 3 it looks very close.
No, it stays within the curbing. But we do provide, and this was something we did speak to the fire chief about. We are using mountable curbing, and that's appropriate for the road width. And we're also using mountable curbing at the island, at the entrance, and the island partway through the site. So it is mountable curbing.
Can you explain mountable curbing?
Mountable curbing, mountable curbing is basically, it's Belgian block. This is going to be Belgian block curbing, and it is installed at an angle, at a batter, so that if you bump into the curbing with your wheel, it doesn't damage your wheel. You can actually drive over it if need be.
Okay.
And so we are providing that throughout the development here. That was part of the original plan, and we talked to the fire chief about that, and that's something he wanted to see as well, but we already had it on the plan.
And I want to just confirm the design layout of the turnaround area. Any vehicle navigating that area is going to be required to reverse, right, perform that K-turn?
Depends on the vehicle. The fire, I indicated this specifically was for the fire truck, but other vehicles could turn around in that area as well.
But they'll also be required to utilize pull forward, reverse, and exit, utilizing this particular turnaround. Is that correct?
It would depend on the truck.
Well, can a vehicle do a U-turn? Would that be permissible in that area?
You can turn around. That area is specifically designated as a turnaround area for cars and trucks at the end of the road.
I want to make sure regarding EIS, I want to make sure I have the complete report. The pagination that I have from the copy provided to me goes from page 1 of 7 to 3 of 7. Is there a missing page 2, or is that just a typo? I just wanted to-
Offhand, I don't know. I'd have to look at your copy. Offhand, I don't know.
Do I have a copy of the EIS in front of you?
Yes.
I have the introduction page 1 of 7, and then the next page is air quality, page 3 of 7.
No, there's a page 2.
There's the page two. You want to see a copy?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Hey, you want to have anybody else have questions and then come back up? That'd be fine.
Yeah, mine's great.
Mr. Chairman, I have one quick question while we're
Sure.
waiting for them. I forgot to ask before, how is mail being handled? Will there be a central mailbox or individual delivery to each individual house?
Each individual house.
And those will be mailboxes at the curb or on the side of the house?
I don't know that we've gotten to that point of that. It's a good question. I don't know the answer of.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Is that legal? I was under the impression that the Postal Service doesn't do that for new construction anymore.
We will,
That
we
you
will,
have to do cluster.
yeah, we haven't gotten there, but we will make sure, it's a
Okay.
good question, and we'll make sure we're doing what's allowed. So like a few of the other questions that were asked, we'll get you an answer on that. Thank you.
So if it's a cluster box, Frank, then it'll be located on the site plan?
We'd have to show it on the plan, yes.
Yes.
Did you perform any analysis or undertake any investigations to determine the impact of air quality caused by the removal of mature trees from the site?
No.
I have several questions regarding tree removal. I know that there's anticipated testimony from the landscape architect. But these are directly related to your plan, the numbers presented in your plan, and the numbers that you present in the EIS. So if the board will allow me to just clarify the numbers of the trees being proposed, the trees being removed, and the calculation for the tree replacement, I have several questions in that regard.
He will not be answering questions on the tree removal and planning. We're going to have a witness on that.
I kindly ask that the online forms be amended to include page 2. While it may have been included via hard copy to the board, it was not included on the link provided to the public.
I'll check on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, so there will be no testimony from you, Mr. Schaffer, regarding the inconsistencies between the plan and the EIS regarding the number of trees that are slated for removal, the replacement, and the calculation of the tree replacement?
No.
Did you consult with anyone from the Springbrook Country Club or any representatives whether any known threatened or endangered species have been observed or sighted on the site?
Did I? No, I did not.
I asked at the initial meeting whether any studies were conducted or analysis undertaken to determine the presence of historically applied pesticides on the site, and you indicated that that had been performed. I asked for a copy of that documentation. I anticipated that that may be included or addressed in the EIS. It wasn't. I kindly asked that you provide that documentation for the board for its consideration. Regarding stormwater, during your design process, did you take into account all the existing infrastructure?
All what infrastructure?
Stormwater infrastructure?
I'm not sure specifically what you're referring to.
Are you aware of any existing inlets in Springbrook Road?
Yes.
And can you confirm where those inlets flow into?
Yes.
Can you expand on that?
Well, everything flows downhill towards the ponds. So it's all the water from this site and in this area of the club property is collected and discharges into one of the ponds on the property.
And the pipes connected to the inlets, well, let me ask you, how many inlets did you identify on Springbrook Road?
I don't remember the number.
Are they identified on your plan?
The storm sewer system, existing storm sewer system is identified on the plan.
Does your design take into account the location of the existing pipes that are connected to those inlets?
Yes.
And how will those pipes be maintained in post-construction condition?
The pipes in Springbrook Road,
The pipes leading from the inlets on Springbrook Road that lead into the site.
all of the storm sewer on the site will be part of the HOA. The storm sewer in Springbrook Road is municipal storm sewer.
With the existing infrastructure, how will the existing pipes that lead from the inlets on Springbrook Road, how will they be maintained post-construction?
I'm not following the question. There's a public storm sewer system in Springbrook Road consisting of inlets and storm sewer piping. That's part of the existing municipal storm sewer system, part of the municipal infrastructure. It will remain part of the municipal infrastructure. The storm sewer system on the site will be owned, operated, and maintained by the homeowners association.
Are any improvements proposed on top of existing stormwater infrastructure?
Objection. I don't know what you're asking.
I'm asking if any of the proposed houses or improvements that are identified on the plan are situated or located above any of the existing stormwater infrastructure that services the site.
I still don't understand.
know.
the
Bob-
question,
Whether
sorry.
the improvements that are planned on this property would impact any existing stormwater drainage system, because they are right where the system is right where the house is going to go.
Well, there's a storm, as I said, there's a storm sewer system in Springbrook Road that collects water from the roadway. We have an on-site storm sewer system. It will at one point connect into the municipal system. We have an extensive on-site stormwater management system consisting of, we have collection inlets on our site, which will be part of the HOA, which will help to collect stormwater. They'll be discharged into stormwater management facilities, including on-site detention basins and an underground infiltration system. And then there will be a connection into the municipal system. In terms of impacts, we will have less runoff from the site under the proposed conditions than we do, and then comes from the site under existing conditions. Hope that answers the question. I'm not sure I followed the question entirely.
Actually, I'm not sure it does, because I thought the question was basically, is there an existing stormwater system on the site now that maybe serves the golf course that, runs out to Springbrook Road that has to be relocated as a part of this?
There are some pipes on the site, but they don't really collect. They're just some underground pipes, and those will be eliminated. And we're going to, anything that's on the site will be homeowner association.
You're talking the new.
The new, all of the new.
Is there
There's nothing
existing?
existing there that is going to be. Again, I don't really quite follow the question, but that's going to be adversely impacted. So all of the existing infrastructure has been taken into consideration as part of the design.
Is that
Correct.
right? Yes.
Right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, so are you saying that there is infrastructure on the site that's not the storm sewer all along Springbrook Road?
Some of the storm sewer pipes along Springbrook Road, there's a pipe that comes into it from the back, but it doesn't appear to really function anywhere,
Well, I
go
believe
anywhere.
that was his question, and I don't understand. I have to say, because it happened last time as well. When an attorney gets up here to ask questions, your demeanor completely changes. He's just the person representing other people.
I didn't understand the question. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm not convinced of that, to tell you the truth. But please, he's asking the question, and every question that he asks, we're interested in as well. And I don't
That's
understand the tension that happens in the room when an attorney gets up and asks a question. I just sense it. I don't know if anybody else does. But
It has nothing to do with it's the quality of the questions that we don't understand.
Okay.
I have
Well, I
nothing
don't-
against this. I have nothing against this gentleman. He can ask all the questions he wants and we're going to answer them. But I mean, I don't know anything about sewer.
just
I didn't
wanna know
understand what he was asking.
Well, I think it's come to the point now where there are some pipes that come into Springbrook Road from somewhere, but nobody knows where they come from or what purpose they serve. That's a fair assessment.
There are a couple of pipes that come into the back of some of the inlets. Those have to be removed and
But do we know what they do now? It's like
They
from
don't
somebody's backyard up the hill.
no.
You don't know what they do?
No, there's nothing that's coming through the site. They don't provide any real benefit. They're not serving other properties.
So what are they doing there? Somebody put them in for a purpose.
I think some of this site has been disturbed over time. Some of them, I think, might be some drains that were put, because there was for example, a putting green on this area at one point in time. So, but which is not in use anymore. So these have been there for years. They don't seem to be serving any purpose.
Look, this seems like a topic that there's a lot of interest in. So for the next hearing,
Yeah.
we'll make sure we identify all of the existing infrastructure so that everyone knows what's there and what's going to happen to it. So
Can
we
you
can
run one of those
certainly,
little vehicles up there and find out where it goes?
I'm sure we could do our best to find out where
And they're
the
shown-
pipes go.
They're
I'm
shown
not
on the
sure
plans.
how,
I don't know if it's going to.
right,
provide
but we'll
anything
do it.
useful
The
or not.
board is
I just
interested.
wanna-
Mr. Benoit is interested. We're gonna find an answer because he wants to know. So
The existing infrastructure is shown on the survey that's part of the plans.
No,
It was a
doesn't
question
matter.
that was
I wasn't
asked,
putting
and
on
I
you.
answered the question.
It's a good question. We're gonna get you an
And
answer.
that was a reasonable question.
Yeah, I agree.
And we won't know until we have the answer as to whether it's pertinent to what it is that we're looking at.
And we will get you an answer.
Thank
It's a good question.
And the plans show the existing infrastructure. It shows the infrastructure, any piping or any changes in the piping is shown on the plans. All of that is detailed. There was a survey done which shows piping in Springbrook Road and any other piping that may be on the site. So that's all been identified, and it's shown what stays and what goes and what gets removed. So it is on the plans that have been submitted.
I appreciate the board's patience. We do, as attorneys here, try to be very focused and understand that these are lengthy meetings. They are for all of us. These questions do serve a purpose, and I respect the courtesy to be able to ask them. How are you proposing to meet the peak rate reduction requirements for the development?
With the on-site detention basins and the underground infiltration system.
In the proposed conditions, what value for time of concentration do you use for the drainage area?
I'd have to go through the report. You'd have to look at specific areas. There are different drainage areas, so times of concentration may vary.
You can both mark that question. I'd be interested in hearing the answer to that.
Could you repeat the question so I understand?
In the proposed conditions, what value or time of concentration did you use for the drainage areas?
Okay.
Trying to ascertain
I'll have to look at the
area or whether you used the baseline minimum. That's the focus of that inquiry.
I don't have the report in front of me, but it was submitted. We'll have to look at the report to get the specific time of concentration. Excuse me.
Were any test pits performed within the footprint of each infiltration BMP?
Not yet.
Without performing the required soil profile pits, how do you determine the infiltration rate of the soil?
Based on available published information and utilizing basically some minimum values, and we indicate that those will be verified with field testing.
Similarly, how did you determine the elevation of the seasonal high water table without performing the soil profile?
Again, based on available published information and some assumptions at this time. Again, that would be verified through the testing.
In your groundwater mounding calculations, I noticed that you have mounding heights ranging from 5.6 to 11.5 feet. Without determining the depth of the seasonal high water table, how can you be sure this doesn't cause an issue with your design?
Well, the mounding analysis takes some assumptions into consideration, and that's built into the or put into the program to come up with the results. As I said, testing will verify some of those numbers.
Thank you. I'll reserve questioning regarding the number of trees being proposed, removed, and the calculation for the replacement requirement for your landscape architect. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, here's your EIS copy back. Thanks. Thank you, sir.
While council is still up here, did the board require him to, or their side to produce a report from their expert, their hydrology expert? I recall that from the last meeting.
Have you retained a hydro?
We will produce a report.
When?
Yeah, because they have a right to,
Of course. I
Right.
believe that the standard has been 10 days before the next hearing, or whenever the testimony.
well, we'd like to get it for the next hearing for sure.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we're just going to be spinning our wheels. So please get it to us by the next hearing. For the next hearing, 10 days before the next hearing.
Are you agreeing to that?
I will consult with my expert.
Yeah, and please let everybody know,
Of course.
because if there's going to be a delay, because there's no sense in coming in here and spending thousands of dollars by the applicant for something that can't be accomplished.
When are you going to know that?
I don't know that. When I reach out to my expert and find out, I'll let everybody,
Yeah.
know.
If you can know by the end of the week, we would really appreciate it.
Yeah.
You will do that, or you're going to work on it?
Give us a
I
status
can't get a
update
yes
by-
answer out of this
Give us
guy.
a status update by Friday. It can't be, I've called him 3 times and he never answered the phone, but just give us a status update.
Okay.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman.
There's Council, before we get started, there's a member of the Environmental Commission here, and I was wondering if she had any questions.
No.
You don't have any questions? Okay. Yeah, she can testify later on. We can't interrupt their presentation. Oh, we're gonna change the batteries?
Mr. Schober with technical
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Schomer, good evening. Nice to see you again. Very quickly, with respect to the plan as we see up here, and I know this is not a subdivision, if council will indulge me for a moment. Using a turnaround, which I know, for example, down in LBI subdivision by easements, they require turnarounds where there's no room for cul-de-sac. Have you ever developed or were the engineer on a project such as that, or one such as this, where there's turnarounds without a cul-de-sac or other means of egress from the property?
Yes.
Okay, and are you able to give some examples of where you've designed these?
I can't think of one off the top of my head, but using, for example, K-turns or hammerheads, sometimes at the ends of roadways or driveways is commonly accepted practice in lieu of having a formal cul-de-sac at the end.
And again, just to be clear, that's in a subdivision situation or a situation like this with detached single-family homes on a single site?
In many different kinds, it could be a multifamily or a single-family type of project. It could be applied at any of those.
I'd ask that you provide a few examples of that. That would certainly be helpful, and I think helpful for the board as well. Thank you.
You can leave it there.
You leave it right there. Any other members of the public with questions? Seeing none, hearing none. Board professionals, any questions? Any board members with any questions? I have a question. You were talking about the 20-foot width on the road inside this project. And one of the examples you gave, or Mr. Hanson stated, was the Wheat Sheep condominiums off of Cadena Road. And I know that's like semicircular, so there's like two means of ingress and egress to that premises. On James Place, is there any type of similar type turnaround in that development?
You mean at the end of the road?
Right.
No, the one cul-de-sac road has a cul-de-sac at the end.
Okay.
But there are two means of ingress and egress into
There
the
are,
site,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Because I'm very concerned about this turnaround, and this is addressed to council and to the applicant in general. Very concerned about this turnaround at the end of the roadway. To me, it's presenting all sorts of problems, and I want it to run smoothly. I do not want, like, oh, there was a car there when we really needed to turn around. Or something else happens that prevents an emergency vehicle from making a turnaround swiftly and safely. So even if that means, redesigning this to eliminate some houses at the end, but I want this to run smoothly if we're going to approve this project.
Okay, we got it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I have a question, yeah. Ben.
Sure.
So just following that line of thought for a second, with single point entry projects, oftentimes there's an emergency egress way. Have you given any consideration to the possibility of having an emergency egress way from, say, the end of that road out to the golf course, and you have a paved cart path right there?
We hadn't looked into that, but
I mean, it could be blocked off, just for emergency egress only, right?
Cart
So-
path's only 5 feet wide.
Yeah, but it gets you off the site in the event you had multiple buildings on fire. They're, pretty close. So it's possible you have dry, windy conditions, you have multiple buildings on fire, you need a way off, and you can't get through your, out to Springbrook, give you another way out.
We'll look at it, Mr.
Yeah.
Olney. We'll look at it.
Right.
Okay. Any other board members with questions? Public, well, I guess we're done. No more questions at this point. It's now 5 after 10. What time do we usually?
10.
10, okay. Just asking.
So, Mr. Chairman, we thank the board for their time and their questions. We do have, of course, more testimony and at least 2 or 3 witnesses. We have our landscape architect, who we did not get to put on this evening, traffic, and then we have to round it out with our planner. So
Okay.
we do have 3 more
And we'll
witnesses.
probably have some point, maybe it'll come up that Mr. Schomer will have to be back in or something.
Sure, and on that, and I'm happy to bring him back to answer the new questions that came up. But if it goes to what should have been covered during the first 2 meetings,
Right.
I mean, because there was a lot of questions this evening that should have been asked during the first presentation, not with the new materials that were presented. So I would just say that the question should be limited a little bit to the new material that's submitted.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Try to limit it, but it's not strictly a courtroom where.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah, and sometimes that additional testimony raises additional questions on those
So
types of items.
they have to circle back, so.
I agree.
I
I hear you.
agree that we don't want to do it extensively and rehash everything, but sometimes it raises new ideas.
So Frank, I just want to run down what short list I have, and
Sure.
I'm not saying this is everything, but I was trying to keep notes of the open items.
And my man here, Josh, in the front, he's got the
Oh,
list,
all
so
right,
you should
good.
look
So
at
we
him
could-
because
we
he
could
writes everything
maybe
down.
confer a little bit here, but you're going to confer with the fire chief on the turning template and perhaps an emergency egress way out of the site. An exhibit to show line of sight at Springbrook Road. You're going to show us, I think, the sidewalks being different, so continuous sidewalk, and that a car will still fit without blocking that sidewalk. And the conversation with the fire chief is really both with respect to units 1 and 2. Where a proposed location where landscape trucks might park, how that would work, of course.
Mailboxes.
Citing mailboxes
Yes.
if they're needed. You're going to need to look into that a little bit. You're going to identify, and maybe you already have it on your plan, but next time we can get into it a little bit, the existing infrastructure on site, especially with regard to storm sewer. If it serves, I think really where that was heading was, if it serves the golf course, is water going to now back up on a golf course if you just cut it? Where's it going? I guess that was most of it.
Do you have any additional ones that we didn't? Now that you've been put on the spot?
Okay, that would be great. Yeah. Thank you.
It was like the teacher, and you're waiting for more. More,
Yeah.
more homework. More
Well, I had a
homework.
couple of other
Like, no more.
notes, but I didn't think they were really that relevant.
Rich, wasn't there something about a verification of the length of the fire truck that was used 41?
Oh, you do need to verify the fire truck length. The template was whatever and what's on your plan. Right.
Right. All right.
Okay, next meeting.
Next meeting. Do we need an extension?
We may, because I don't know where we are on time, but let's figure out the next meeting first.
Yeah.
And Frank, did you provide a transcript from the last hearing?
Yes.
You did? Okay. I believe you.
Okay.
We have it.
Oh,
Sonia
okay.
confirmed we
Yeah,
have it.
yeah.
Something before November?
You know, yes.
Yeah.
May 20th is
Oh
my
my
first meeting.
gosh, May. Oh yeah, yeah.
But you're not here, April.
I'm not here. I'm not here for the April meeting, so I'm probably part of the problem for that.
Can we carry to the next meeting to see if we can get a special meeting date?
It's on for next March. Actually, February. It's on
Just for purposes of scheduling and
for
seeing if we can work out
Yeah.
another special.
Yeah,
I could carry you to that just to,
scheduling.
for
Yeah,
scheduling meeting, okay?
yeah.
Oh,
You
For
did say
special
May,
meeting, let
right?
me
Was
see.
the next meeting?
Next
May,
meeting is the 26th.
February.
February 26th is my next regular scheduled meeting, but I booked already.
You're booked all the way to May.
Uh-huh.
That's unbelievable.
In March,
Wow.
I'm booked, okay?
Morris Township's a popular place to be. Wow.
Yeah. There's probably time in April. I'm just not here in April.
Yeah.
So-
Well, we'll see. Can we get on in February and then we'll see? Maybe the board members will find it in their hearts to give us a date off the schedule.
We're heartless.
What's on for February?
February,
We got the
oh, I got a
Bertram
D,
continuation?
I got B variance. Mhm. And it's brand new application.
Oh, yeah.
So I closed that. Mhm.
Oh, okay.
And,
When's our,
Oh,
oh,
March.
March. Okay, so yeah, March is called. We got the other group.
I mean, February, if you look at the February schedule. For special meeting, you wanna look February for special meeting? Oh, but then February 26th, if I put it for February 26th, it's not good.
February
Because
26th.
right now,
Oh, you'd have to. book it
26th.
now. If we'd have to pull the board right now.
we'll have to
Yeah.
put the board right down.
Yeah.
February 12th is open.
February 12th, isn't that like the,
It sounds like.
Okay,
sounds like a holiday weekend, yeah, sounds
ding, ding,
sounds
ding,
like they're gonna
ding,
be
hold
somewhere
on.
else.
February 12th. Look at February 12th. February 12th, February 12th.
What kind of day of the week is that?
That's Monday.
Is that holiday? Is that next
No,
week?
holidays the following week,
Yeah,
the
Frank,
19th.
we're just polling here a little bit,
Oh,
February
okay.
12th, if that works for you guys.
February 12th?
Yeah, you want to see if that works for you guys?
Yes.
The day after.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes,
Day
guys.
after the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Yeah, day after Super Bowl. We'll all be
all
there.
right. That's a federal holiday day after the Super Bowl.
No, it's not for us.
Not for me.
The 19th.
I teach the next day.
This is for a hearing?
Not for
Yes.
you, right?
Yes.
Carol, February 12th. Is that a good date?
No, I don't teach on Mondays. Now, this semester, I don't teach on Mondays.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Oh, good? Oh, good?
Is it good with us?
I mean, are you guys good?
Yeah.
Good.
Are you good?
No, not
You
Good. Okay, let me call the board for.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. February 12th.
Vanel's not here.
Schuster, yes.
I believe I'm available, but I
Benoit,
might not be. So I'll let you-
yes. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Woodford,
Yeah, I'm available.
Mr. Oler,
I'm good.
Mr. Williams, no?
No, that's my birthday weekend. You guys can feel free to send me any gifts. Trinkets.
All right.
Okay.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Is it really?
Yeah, I'll be in Washington that week.
Mr. Goldberg,
President's
I'll
weekend.
confirm with you tomorrow, but I believe I am, but if I'm not, I will let you know tomorrow.
You know, you just gotta dial in on Zoom, right?
Oh, yeah.
So how many we have?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh,
See that?
wait, that's counting you.
Very
1, 2,
accommodating.
3, 4, 5, 6.
Maybe Betty?
And maybe Betty. Uh-huh.
So
I will confirm with
6,
Betty.
is that Mr. Goldberg as a maybe or a yes?
Mr. Goldberg, I put him as a yes, but with a
He's a
question
maybe.
I'm a
mark.
maybe. I'm a maybe. So
Confirm
I will
with me
confirm with you tomorrow.
So we have 5 yeses, 1 maybe, and 1 who's not here.
For which?
For
12.
February 12th.
Okay. We'll have enough to put on 2 witnesses, but all the other people are not available. So we're going to have the landscape architect. She could do our whole presentation. And then we could bring back Rusty for his presentation.
Yeah, because there's open questions with him.
Yeah, but our traffic and planner are not, they'll have to go to the meeting after that.
And you were going to give us a written report on the planner? Because I think the,
Yeah, he said,
oh, great, thanks. Okay.
okay, so I
you
just,
wanna do
we'll
that?
take it, and we'll have the landscape architect and Rusty come back for the 12th.
The architect and the engineer.
The landscape architect. We're not going to do
We're
traffic.
going to have the traffic guy.
Joe, you're not available?
All right.
Yeah, no, we're not
Paul?
going to do traffic. Corey can't make it.
Of course.
And Mr. Fisher can make it.
Mr. Hanson.
Right now.
Definitely putting it forward.
Okay, so the
All right, so-
professionals
February
report except
Okay.
Joe, but I will always send you transcripts,
Rich, it's
okay?
conceivable that there may be a third special meeting requested after the next meeting, right?
Right.
Do you try to prevent, do you try to control?
Doesn't
for that?
make no sense, right, okay.
Yeah, I don't
So
know.
You
we'll
don't
make
have
an
to.
announcement
Right.
for
Yeah.
special meeting.
We're trying to get this application.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Mr. Oler, we'll make an announcement for
Yes, as soon as I know. Is that what we're doing?
February 12th. It looks
Okay.
okay with the applicant.
Yes.
You're okay?
Yes.
All right, so hey, for purposes of the public and rescheduling, obviously this meeting is now concluding for this evening. It's going to continue on February 12th at 7 p.m. in this room, okay? Without further notice from the applicant.
It's February 12th special meeting, right?
February 12th, special meeting.
And we need any extension.
Why don't we extend through March?
Yeah, we consent to that
Okay.
extension.
So March, for however many days March has these days, 31?
31.
We agree, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Counselor, so our expert, we can produce a summary report for the March meeting, is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know that there's going to be a March meeting that they're participating in, but you're not going to participate in the February meeting with witnesses. You can obviously cross-examine,
Right.
but your witnesses won't be, we're going to let him finish his direct case first.
Just wanna-
So we're not there yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so, the civil landscaping, for the next meeting, the 12th? Is that-
Correct. It's
landscape-
landscape architect and Rusty Schomer again.
With the unresolved questions.
Okay?
All right. Okay,
That's without no further notice?
no further.
Without
notice.
further notice, right? Okay.
Okay. Board members. Anything else?
No.
Bring up? Nothing.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I did have one item.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I did have one item.
All right.
Are we in the other matters portion of the meeting? I don't know. Is there an other
Yes.
matters portion of special meetings?
Yes.
Okay, so if there's always other matters, I believe I shared Mr. Woodford, Mr. Aller, Ms. Santiago, an email I received earlier this week from a member of the Environmental Commission who is applying for a grant to do an environmental inventory of Morris Township that will then be used to feed into the next master plan review. And they are seeking just a letter from the Board of Adjustment supporting this grant. I believe they've received one from the planning board. So I can resend the email to you, Mr. Woodford. Cynthia.
Got it.
Okay, so yeah, so just, I don't know if that's something that we can accommodate the Environmental Commission in producing as a
For
board.
the February 26th, I could put that matter on the agenda for discussion?
Yeah, I'll put a letter together and then we'll review it at the meeting.
Okay, that would be super. That would be greatly appreciated by the people that are applying for.
It's like yesterday.
It's within the last 48 hours, correct?
So it was like you were copying.
Our expert report doesn't have.
Well,
to be
it's just,
invited,
it's not coming up.
so it'll likely-
Okay, well,
Unless-
Sonia, Paul, I'll resend it,
Yeah,
but
if you just send it,
there's nothing
they
urgent.
have it.
Yeah,
but
there's
I don't
nothing
remember
urgent, but
seeing
yeah,
it,
it's just,
and it's
I just
not
wanted to
coming
just
up.
bring that to the board's attention, that they're applying for this grant to do an environmental inventory that,
They sent it like at 10 o'clock
Am
yesterday.
I on it?
Yeah, it says Rich.
Yeah, but.
Okay, I'll get you another copy. It's fine. I've been wondering why you haven't been answering my emails.
Oh, you got my wrong email. That's a very old email.
Listen,
Yeah.
we've been together a long time, Rich,
Yeah.
so apparently.
I'm like, I can see this, so I'm
Because you
gonna,
usually do respond. so-
Yeah.
Resend it tonight. or
yeah,
tomorrow.
and get rid of that one. So here, I'm gonna respond to one that came up from you from October,
Okay,
okay? And of 22 for some
Okay.
reason. But, yeah.
If I say forward to Rich Older, they'll probably say move it over.
Good night.
thank you.
Okay.
All right, so I just,
Which one? Okay, all right, so
All
good.
right.
Now I'll have your
Yeah.
most updated email. Thank you. Thank you for your time and attention on this, as it's
this is even easier.
important to the Environmental Commission. Thank
It's
you.
not even folded.
Thank you, Rich.
You're welcome.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor, aye.
Mr. Chair and Sonia?